Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, April 5th, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, in studio, Alex Pareene, to look back on this week that was, and also into the darkest abyss, Mitch McConnell. Also on the program today, David Feldman, ostensibly to give us a movie recommendation. He won't do that.
No, actually he will.
Maybe he will. Also on the program today, White House pulls their head of ICE nominee, supposedly because he's not tough enough. Michael Cohen claims to have found new documents proving that Trump instructed him to lie to Congress. Elizabeth Warren calls for ending the filibuster. And is Kamala Harris backing off her Medicare for All pledge? Meanwhile, British police stationed outside the Ecuadorian embassy anticipating Julian Assange's ejection. And a federal court, Trump nominee, upholds a Kentucky law forcing doctors to show and describe fetal ultrasounds to women prior to allowing them to have an abortion. Meanwhile, Trump's tax cuts worked. JP Morgan's profits up $3.7 billion.
All right.
All this and more on today's program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Glad you could join us in studio. We are very happy to welcome back to the program Alex Pareene,
Hey.
writer at large, written for all sorts of publications, continues to do so. Alex, welcome back to the program. I should also just say, as a matter of house cleaning, recorded an interview with Glenn Greenwald about, 45 minutes ago. And we will be posting that probably on Tuesday as I make my way to Las Vegas for the my biannual tort law conference excursion.
That's a very big day for you.
What's
Like
that?
A debate with Glenn and all my lawyer friends.
It was an interview. I don't know if I was. Yeah.
No, it was. It was very nice. It was a very nice exchange, and I also thought, just a foreshadowing, there was some common ground found at the end.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. We should say this just in. The House has voted to end American involvement in the Yemen war. This is now, they have passed the Senate bill that was all based on the War Resolutions Act, War Powers Resolution.
Yeah, I think it's war powers, yeah.
And Donald Trump is expected to veto this. I think it would be his
Has
first
he vetoed
veto.
anything? This has to
It'll be
his
a
first
second
veto.
veto.
And what was his first veto? Oh, the emergency powers,
Yeah.
the wall. And I do not believe, I haven't seen the numbers here, but I do not believe that they will have enough votes in the Senate and the House to override the veto. So, but it is an important assertion of Congress's at least attempt to curb a and I would imagine maybe there's other things they can do in terms of funding, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But this is a good sign, anyways. At least that Congress is attempting to assert its power a little bit. So, Alex, and we could talk about the $3.7 billion because I still have fond memories of you on CNBC, was it?
CNBC,
talking about Jamie Dimon?
Yeah.
But
That was like being in the Vatican insulting the Pope.
but let's turn to another billionaire. And, of course, I'm talking about Howard Schultz. He was on America's Election HQ last night. Was this last night? It was last night, right? Fox's town hall. And he was with Brett Baer and somebody else from
someone
Fox.
else.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay, folks.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And Howard Schultz is there. Now, Howard Schultz is being advised by Steve Schmidt and Bill Burton. And they are getting paid millions.
A lot of money.
I am quite convinced they are making millions of dollars. And if I am wrong, they can sue me, and we can find out in Discovery.
They can.
But
call in.
I have heard millions of dollars.
I believe that easily.
And they for literally $100,000, I would have given him this advice. Let me just say, but here it is. Here it is.
Don't sell yourself short.
Well, maybe I'm negotiating against myself, but
Wow.
but I wouldn't because I wouldn't want to have to hang around too much.
Yeah, right.
There's I think they get paid. I think they get paid like $5 for the advice, and then the rest of the millions of dollars are just to hang around and make him feel like he's smart.
Yeah.
That I
It's
think
like when you buy drugs in high school. Right. You have to hang out with the person.
Exactly. You got to get high with your dealer.
I wouldn't
and
know
just
anything
yeah,
about that.
that's a drag. So here's Alex. I mean, here's Alex. Here's Howard Schultz.
Here's Alex Pareene.
Here's Alex Pareene. Here's Howard Schultz describing what he would do about immigration. This is well, listen.
It cannot be solved currently because of the ideology of both parties. But if I was fortunate enough to become president, this is what I can promise you. I'm about accountability. I'm about results. I would bring the people into the room. I would say, you cannot come in here with ideology or ego. What I want to do is I want to put an empty chair in the room, and that chair represents the American people. And we're not going to leave the room until we solve the problem for the American people. The problem that we have with both parties, the American people are not in the room.
So I want to have a bulletin board here where I map this out. The American people are not in the room. So what we're going to do is we're going to put an empty chair. The way we're going to solve the American people not being in the room, the way we do that is to not have them in the room.
The problem is this chair represents the American people. If only we had another system whereby people representing the American people could be in Congress. If only
much better to have the representatives of the American people unable to speak because they're an inanimate object.
Yes, exactly.
The coffee Willy Wonka has invented chairocracy.
I'm starting to do, because I've always been all about, like, you cannot overinflate the intelligence of people like this, and running a coffee company and figuring out how to put more sugar in coffee is not the same as running a country. But it is reaching a point of like, how the fuck did this guy manage Starbucks? Right. Like, what?
Let me just, where have I heard this idea of an empty chair being an effective political tool? Let's travel back in time, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2012 Republican Convention.
Quite a throwback here.
I haven't cried that hard since I found out that there's 23 million unemployed people in this country. This administration hasn't done enough to cure that. So I've got Mr. Obama sitting here, and I just was going to ask him a couple questions. So, Mr. President, how do you handle How do you handle promises that you made? You don't have it. Okay. Well, I know even some of the people in your own party.
There he is. I mean, it's the American public was there too. The American people in the chair, the empty chair. Let's talk just a little bit about the idea that there's too much ideology. Like, how do you? There are a million different solutions to the immigration problem. The problem is that what the immigration problem is everybody, like, there's like a lot of different statements of that problem.
Right. And I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting to hear him state what he thinks the immigration problem is, because in stating that, you are declaring your ideology.
Right.
You cannot just generalize it to be the problem. If you can't be specific about what you mean about that, because the second you're specific about it, you are declaring. And I mean, Schultz is the same thing has the same sort of brain disorder as other billionaires do, where he thinks he has no ideology, and then meanwhile he's just like completely representative of his class, like in every single way. And he's got his positions are basically like Bloomberg positions. Like, I basically want business to be mostly left alone, and I'm fairly culturally liberal. And Bloomberg eventually realized, like, repeatedly, every 4 years, Bloomberg realizes, oh, wait, I'm a Democrat. Like, there's a party that represents my interests. But Schultz is now, he's committed to this bit now. He's too committed to the bit to be like...
It really is. I mean, it's sort of like...
You got to say yes. You got to say yes to the premise.
It's just like somebody who travels to a different part of the country and go like, I don't have an accent. You have an accent.
Yeah.
I mean, or I don't have an accent. Well, you're the guy with the accent. I mean, whatever. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to pick on Southern people.
Oh, it's all right.
It's a way to clean it up.
But
Sam.
I want to talk.
Good work there.
I want to get back to this notion of selling this lack of ideology, because we were talking about something before you came in. But first, I have to remind people that support for today's show comes from Third Love. Third Love uses data points generated by millions of women who have taken their Fit Finder quiz to design bras with breast size and shape in mind. The results: a perfect fit and a premium feel. Simply answer a few questions to find your perfect fit in 60 seconds. Then once you receive your bra, you can wear it, wash it, put it to the test for 60 days. And if you don't love it, return it, and Third Love will wash it and donate it to a woman in need. It's all part of their 100% fit guarantee. This is hands down the most comfortable bra you'll own, with straps that won't slip, tagless labels, lightweight, super thin memory foam cups. They even have a line of incredibly soft and breathable cotton bras. And how do I know this, folks, despite the fact that I don't wear bras? Because I outsourced the testing of the bras. This is what we heard back. I love they don't have a zillion options, so it's easy to choose something quickly. The fit is great. I usually have to return most bras I order online, even though they're in my size. I ordered 2, both fit. That almost never happens. Super comfortable for an everyday bra, but not as boring as most t-shirt bras. Subtle, cute details, so I don't feel basic. Right? Third Love knows there's a perfect bra for everyone. So right now, they're offering my listeners 15% off your first order. Go to thirdlove.com/majority now to find your perfect fitting bra and get 15% off your first purchase. Remember, you can wear it for 60 days. 60 days. And if you don't, you return it.
Figure it out.
Buy a bunch that first time, because you get 15% off. I hope I'm not...
Don't
thirdlove.com/majority for 15% off today. And also, folks, the Majority Report is being supported in part by Simple Habit. It's a mobile app that provides a massive and diverse library of 5-minute guided meditations. Do you meditate?
No, I should start, though.
Yeah, well, this would be the way.
There you go.
Majority Report audience and even guests can try Simple Habit totally free for an entire week when you go to simplehabit.com/majority. Alex, why would you start meditating?
I've got some anxiety, like all of us do, and sometimes you gotta try ways to treat it that aren't pharmaceutical.
There you go. Simple Habit has 2,000 guided meditations specially designed for different parts of your day and just about anything you might be dealing with in life. They have guided meditations for mindfulness, meditations for anxiety, for depression, for when you're having trouble falling asleep. I check off all these boxes. I got to start. Meditation when you're wanting to overcome procrastination, or when you have something important going on at work. Meditations designed for parents. They even have meditations made specifically for when you're waking up, or your lunch break, or when you've just gotten home from work, or when you're going to bed. Different people are trying to accomplish different things with meditation. Simple Habit is able to cater to just about anyone, regardless of what their goals are with meditation or how much past experience they have with meditation. This is what sets Simple Habit apart. They have so many varieties of guided meditations, and you have it all on one app. Simple Habit just won the 2018 Google Play Award for Best Well-Being App. It's available on iOS, Android, and web browsers. Check it out now, folks. It is simplehabit.com/majority, and my audience and guests can try it out for free for an entire week. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the show, we've put the link in the description. Check it out. So, Alex, this concept of billionaires assuming they have no ideology and appealing to this notion of like, it's going to be strictly competence for me. And I'm just coming in and we're going to put all of people's opinions and desires. Like, first of all, does this guy get into the room if he says, leave your egos outside? Like, can he even like walk in? But aside from that, this concept of no ideology in politics, right? Like you were talking about noticing something about what Beto and Pete Buttigieg say are their favorite books, and you can't build too much on this, but it is an interesting observation.
Yeah, because we hear a lot about how, and they're both extremely well educated, and they're both clearly very intelligent, but they talk about the books they love, and people who profile them talk about Beto's giant bookshelves and all these other things, and they only talk about novels. They only talk about fiction, and like Pete Buttigieg's favorite book list just came out today or yesterday, and it was 10 novels. And Beto's favorite book is The Odyssey, and everyone talks about but it's actually not totally, because they talked about presidential biographies. We're the only other thing I hear about Beto reading, which is like those don't really count. But like they're never mentioning nonfiction books, never mentioning political books about like actual problems facing the country, things like that. Because if I
dynamics that are going on, or it doesn't have to be that they're all reading like Michael Moore and Lying Liars,
totally.
But like there's a lot of books that
Beto's like, there's was Sick Burn by Al Franken on Sean Hannity. But that formed my politics.
But the idea that you want to be president, and like, okay, there's two possible scenarios here, and the implications are not terribly different. But one is that they worked up a list of books beforehand, and that it wasn't just their favorite ones. It was like each book. I mean, and almost on some level, it would be political malpractice not to contemplate like what these books are going to hit.
Do you think if it was purely cooked up, though? I bet they would have thrown at least one or two on that signified to some of the modern political concerns of like the Democratic primary.
Well, but here's the thing, that I think. Maybe they would, or maybe they would. It almost doesn't matter, because that idea is still representative of like they want to their promise as candidates in some level is the polarization, the Strum and Drang or whatever that's called, the everything that Donald Trump represents, like how engaged you have to be in politics.
Yeah.
This is. I represent a release from that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, right. I mean, I think that's it, and I think the idea that if this is the audience you're trying to pitch your campaign to, it is the idea that we can go back to caring about Wolf Hall, and we can go back to talking about our favorite novels and not having to read the Washington Post every day, or even like we don't even have to read like the new Jim Crow and be worried about that, we can
and that has a big appeal.
It does to a certain part of the Democratic audience.
Yep. If Hillary were president, we'd be at brunch right now.
Yeah.
I mean, on some level, like that is, I just distinctly remember that was the big takeaway when Bill Clinton was elected.
Right. After
12 years of Reagan Bush, and it was really just like 12 years of Reagan is what the people felt. Everybody was just so excited to not have them in office. Right. And then we don't have to pay attention to politics anymore. And that's basically what happened.
Yeah.
And I guess it's going to be interesting to see if that works.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I feel like that segment of maybe that segment of the Democratic base is features a lot of people who donate to candidates, which I sort of lean towards thinking, but I certainly don't. I certainly think for the majority of people voting for these guys or women, hopefully, the majority of the people voting are not part of that demographic. They actually have problems they want addressed, I think. But the people they're sort of pitching their campaigns to are definitely the ones who are our material problems are much smaller than our sort of psychic problems with how the country's being run.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's also, you can also look at the polling of how many Democrats want compromise.
Yeah.
And that has gone down.
Yeah.
And I think that the question is not so much just about compromise. The question is about how invested they are in politics, and how aware they are of the dynamic. Because I think a reasonable person would say yes, you need compromise.
Right. How do these things that sound in a normal, free of context, or normal, mature responses to things sound good versus actually understanding what the situation is?
This is actually what's really interesting and why I feel like Beto feels like a throwback in a lot of ways. It's because he's framing everything in these, because it used to be that was how Democrats just talked, where you would ask them what's the biggest problem facing the country today, and they'd be like, well, we can't come together. We can't come together.
There's no blue America. There's no red America.
But if you
Get
actually
my lines out your mouth, white boy.
But if you asked, I feel like if you asked Democrats now what are the biggest problems facing the country, they're not going to say, well, we can't come together. They're gonna name actual material things for the most part.
Do you think though that
we're all just people who really liked our freshman year lit class? Okay.
I think there's also there's among some of them it's not can we all come together, but can we get back to expertise? There's a new version of that I see kind of manifesting in a way.
Oh, that's not new.
It's not new, but it's a different version than can we all.
That was a Bush.
Together.
That was a Bush.
Oh, that's true. Right.
That
was truthiness.
Yeah, that was totally a Bush thing. Was we got to get
right. Well, what do you think most Democratic primary voters would say?
I think that is also a standard. I think that is look, Democrats want good government.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and as nebulous as that term is, right? They just I think there was always a sense, particularly with the billionaire class and sort of the conventional wisdom, we all agree. I think the good faith conventional wisdom pushers were we all agree on what the problem is.
Yeah.
We're arguing about how to address it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it has become clearer to more and more people that we don't agree on what the problems are. And that's really ultimately what politics are, right? Coming up with the solutions is when you bring the solution people first, you are ignoring the fundamental reason why politics exists.
This is the thing that I feel like the argument people on sort of our side have been having with the centrists for forever now is their insistence on, well, we all agree on what the problems are, we have different ideas to fix them. And you can look at the entire history of how we've done healthcare policy in this country and say, do we agree with what the problems are?
No,
we clearly don't agree with what the problems are.
We don't agree what the problem is with immigration.
No, not at all.
And I don't just mean left and right. I mean, I think across the board we don't have any type of consensus on what we should be doing in regards to immigration and
globalization.
globalization. I don't know that we have on trade.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying, I don't think we do.
It's really...
We're doing on monetary policy. I mean,
on military.
Yeah, I just.
But also on military.
And there's one way to figure that out. It's through politics.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's not, and
Well, we have an empty chair right here to represent the American
this
people.
Represents the Democratic electorate on every show.
We're going to say, we all checked our egos at the door, and we're going to figure out what the problems are right now.
we're just going to figure out. We're going to figure out the solution. We don't even.
We don't know.
What's the problem? See, no problem. Chair hasn't said a single word about what a problem is. We just didn't hear.
That's why we leave that chair open for the American people.
For the American people.
And
if
that
you
is
like the status quo, say nothing.
And that is what is so facile about what Schultz is doing. It'd be fascinating to me to see if being on Fox gets him some Republican support.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think that that at Burton and Schmidt were you got to go on Fox first.
Yeah.
Because that way it makes it look like you're not going after the
Yeah.
Democratic Party, even though we already told everybody.
Yeah,
you
they
were.
kind of already gave the game away, which was interesting strategically to just tell everyone, oh yeah, we're doing this because we're threatening them in case they nominate Bernie. But because obviously there is some slice of the Republican electorate that is basically the Evan McMullin crowd. That is
Right.
we've had enough of this guy.
Maybe Evan McMullin could be his running mate. That would be a powerful ticket. That would be a
Steve
powerful
Schmidt,
ticket.
if you're listening.
Steve, and because actually,
I can't wait
He could
to
do
see
a
who
lot
he
of work
picks.
actually, because Evan McMullin really puts to bed a lot of ideas about the intelligence of CIA officers and their savviness. And Howard Schultz is a walking demolition squad of CEO competence. Although I have to say, we were saying this on TMBS the other night because we always do that Steve Klubik sound drop for basically everything. Remember the Keep It Simple guy, the guy with no neck from Diamond Resorts International?
Oh, yeah,
who
yeah,
looks
yeah.
like an extra in Showgirls. Now, he was on with Stephanie Ruhle 8 months ago saying everything that Howard Schultz is saying, being I'm going to cut the money off. Don't mention billionaires anymore. He would be a way better candidate than Howard Schultz because he's an everyman oligarch. His style would be so much more relatable.
The funny thing is we're already living in the world where the American people decided they wanted to put a businessman in charge.
Right.
We are already living in that world. They did not choose Bloomberg or Schultz. The American people said, yeah, you know what? A business owner, CEO type should be in charge, and we want that one.
Right, exactly. We rejected Mitt Romney, who was that same guy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why, that was George Bush, right? The CEO president.
Yeah.
And there is, I think, more, I think there's probably more, broadly speaking, more appetite for that on the right.
Yeah.
I mean, or center right, maybe the center left as well, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd be curious. I'm sort of fascinated now about who Howard Schultz might pick for his running mate. That's going to be worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
That's the dude. Keep it.
We have another clip of Howard Schultz on there, just because it's so fun and it's so, it really is revealing of this group of people, right? And the thing is that he's going to go in. He could spend hundreds of millions, I guess, on his campaign. It'll be interesting to see if he does that. But it also gives you a sense of how twisted. Just imagine if one of these guys decided I'm not going to be president. I'm just going to be in charge of education. And then all of a sudden you get Bill Gates, right? That's, Bill Gates, I think, is smarter, but he doesn't necessarily
Well, this is every time you hear about a billionaire pledging to give their fortune away to philanthropy, they're talking about policy. They're not giving it in cash to the poor. They're talking about influencing policy every time.
Yes. And Bill Gates spent $750 million, maybe more, and completely changed the trajectory of where educational thought was going in this country for, at least half a decade, maybe
us a
more,
lot of data
maybe
about what
almost a
doesn't work.
decade.
Super
And at the end of that, commissioned a Rand report and basically said, we were completely wrong. and what the teachers and professional educators have been saying was right, nobody reported on it.
Yeah.
I don't think it made one national news broadcast, and it completely influenced and still reverberates through our educational system.
Is there any TV programs you'd like to demand apologies from for hosting?
There's a whole host of.
Why should you listen to teachers when you could listen to education experts?
But that's the thing. They didn't listen to education experts. Like, they did not listen to educators, right? Like people who had been trained in teaching. They listened to system analysis folks, and they listened to quant people. And then they just basically walked away, and I don't think the message necessarily has been fully absorbed. That, like, they were really wrong, like so wrong that even when they did their self-analysis. And so let's listen to Schultz make more of his pitch.
So it's March Madness. Everyone knows Monday night is a big game. Okay, so this week, Tom Izzo is from Michigan State, someone I went to school with. He was being interviewed, and he was asked, what kind of kids do you recruit for Michigan State? And he said there's three kinds of kids. Kids who like it, kids who love it, and kids who live it. I recruit kids who live it. Ladies and gentlemen, what we need to do as Americans is we need to start living our values. We need to start recognizing that we are in this together. Every problem that we have can be solved if we come together as a nation. We are all Americans. We're here tonight, Republicans, Democrats, Independents. Remember I said no hate zone? This can be done. We can solve our problems and come together. Do you agree with me?
Can I just say, like, I have no idea what he's talking about. Like, what is that?
Because you're so
like,
full of hate.
But living it means, like, I live and breathe basketball. Like, I play constantly. Yeah. Like, I wake up in the morning. It's not a question of, like, should I go out and practice? It's like, there's nothing I want to do other than practice. I don't understand what that means in the context of us living our values.
I don't know.
There's nothing I want to do other than triangulate. Say Pavlov, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Like, I just don't understand what that means.
I wake up eager to find the exact midpoint between two competing ideologies. I live and breathe.
And well, that's the thing is that
I live and breathe fiscal responsibility and social tolerance.
But
so wait,
this is images of Tom Izzo going at one of his players and yelling at him, and the kid looks like he's completely, like he's like, Coach, I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
He's living it right there.
He's living it. So but that's the point. Is like that's what living it is.
Yeah.
Like he just said no ideology in the other clip, and that's what living it is.
Right.
It's like, I'm going for this.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't.
Can we do? This gives me an opportunity to talk about the Schultz thing that I cannot believe no one has actually done this reporting yet, because it's already sort of known that he's not truthful about his own biography. He went to Michigan State. No one knows why or how, because he grew up in New York City. He was in his middle class public housing. That was like the nice public housing for middle class white families. CUNY and SUNY were free at the time if you lived here. No one was going to a state school in another state if they were like qualified to get in.
Maybe he was living and breathing it.
I guess he was living and breathing it.
Maybe he was living and breathing it.
But he has, in the past, he has claimed to have gotten an athletic scholarship, and then he revealed that was not true.
That's so weird.
So like, why did he go to Michigan? Like, what was he doing at Michigan State? Going to a public, like, he's not like he went to Harvard. He went to a public state school in another state, had to pay money for, when he could have just gone to school for free in New York.
That is really weird.
It's really weird.
Maybe he pissed off.
It's just weird that there's no story. It could have been like, I really, really had a crush on a girl.
Right. But like his original story was, I got an athletic scholarship, and that turns out not to be true. So now there's just no story.
We need to imagine a scenario where you don't dump me, and I go follow you to Michigan.
But anyway,
That is some real old economy Howard shit too. Can we appreciate that?
You know how how we make fun of Chuck Schumer for having an imaginary family that he runs his bad ideas by, and then they reconfirm them for him. I think that like Howard Schultz has such an incredible lack of moral imagination that he doesn't even think he needs imaginary people in his own head to talk to.
Right.
And maybe we need
a
solution to it that risks the imagination of a new kind of possibility.
I just love how Bill Burton so clearly in that clip. Bill Burton is just like why Steve Schmidt seems like genuinely like whiny and aggrieved, and Bill Burton is just like, dude, you hearing what I'm saying? And if you can see my bank statements right now, it would be so funny to you too.
Bill Burton must have talked to his buddies, and I wonder what those. I mean, I have a vague notion of what those conversations were. People were just like,
opportunity
dude,
to be a multimillionaire.
take the money, take the
Yes.
money, and. You're not going to be hurting anybody. He's not. Maybe it's like he's not going anywhere, or maybe I mean, I wonder.
Why is Schmidt so bitchy about it though?
Well, because he is doing exactly what he criticized his former friends supposedly.
right.
You know, a year like literally there are clips of him going like, I just found out the whole conservative movement is a graph. And that it's like it's just a scam, and then all of a sudden he's like, multi-million-dollar contract. Okay.
Maybe he really believes in him. Who knows?
I mean, listen, I will cop to this. There is a number. I'm not sure what it is.
Of course.
But, you know, if I had to take a leave of absence
Let
from
me
the
tell you
show,
something.
folks,
Howard Schultz could set up like 500 dummy Patreon accounts. Just throw them in. That'd be good. Let's just knock TMBS
funny,
up to our
'cause,
next
like-
3,000 patrons, and I'll tell you how to imagine a new possibility.
well, no, I mean,
whatever the fuck.
it's not inconceivable to me to imagine like that there would be a number where I'd be like, listen, I got to take 6 to 8 months off the show. I will explain in a year and a half as to why I'm doing this.
Love
And
to see.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I mean, with Schmidt too, it's like if you're like one of the dozen genuine never Trump Republican guys, like your paydays are limited.
Right.
Who's going to hire you?
Right.
Like no one's going to hire you.
well,
Right
he
now.
had a decent podcast that was doing pretty well.
No, but I mean, but I mean, he had a decent. No, but he had an MSNBC. I mean, it is interesting that like he had an opportunity to live to his principles and be totally comfortable.
Yeah.
And
Right.
It was just like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
he
yeah.
did have that opportunity.
Right.
I think obviously.
not
Yeah, you don't know.
If it was
Maybe,
literally
you know,
like, hey,
you-
he's bankrupt.
You know, I mean, you don't know.
And he
Maybe
has,
he
like-
has, you know, like, a sick family member who has no health insurance. I mean, I don't
And
know.
we need to make
I
sure
don't
that
know.
they stay
But
without health
gambling
It
insurance.
is right. You could have severe gambling
He
debt.
owes
There's a
money
whole.
to some
We
of
don't
the
know
same
that he
people
does,
that
but it's
Brett
possible.
Kavanaugh
Who knows?
might have owed money
Who knows?
to.
Didn't McCain was famous actually for like just losing tons of money gambling.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
John McCain.
he would gamble for like an entire weekend and just lose a fortune.
That's cool.
But you know,
Well, he has.
he had money.
married
Yeah,
into
he married into
some
money.
Call
pretty
his
big money.
daughter up.
All
I
right,
just
so
spent more of
let's
your
talk about
fucking
somebody
money. Fuck you.
who's really living it. Mitch McConnell.
Yes, he is.
He's living it.
His latest I guess move has been to, and I don't know if it's quite officially happened yet, but he's going to get rid of the a procedural blockage to judges being nominated, where you're allowed to hold the floor for 30 hours.
It was 30 hours and then
And people should understand it's like 30 working hours. So it can really slow down the process. I mean, it can slow down the process. I don't know how to really sort of quantify it. I mean, but it can slow down the process of how many judges you get in. He's going to get rid of that. He's gotten rid of blue slips. It's pretty. He is completely remaking the judiciary.
Mm-hmm.
And just to remind people about the implications of it before we get into this, here is today a federal court in Kentucky. 2-1 decision, Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. And this is really stunning in a minute in terms of like, understand, and I don't want to get too far afield here, but the whole Janus case, which kneecapped public sector unions, is that by forcing people to pay an agency fee to the lawyers who negotiate your contract, if it's under a shop, you are infringing upon the free speech rights of a non-union member because they're having to give money. This judge, John Bush, appointed by Donald Trump, says that it is okay under the First Amendment to force physicians to do something that is completely not medically necessary for them to do their job, which is to perform. And I don't know if it's to actually perform it on the specific women, but to show and describe a fetal ultrasound to patients before performing an abortion. It's not even on the woman necessarily.
Christ.
It is just like, it is basically, you need to go to an anti-abortion organization and sit there and watch a mandatory a movie, essentially. And,
why do you support this, Alex?
But this is just one example, and there are a million examples of the implications of a circuit court judge being appointed by Donald Trump, because these are about as far right-wing judges as we've seen, I think, appointed, and they've been pretty far right-wing. McConnell has orchestrated all of this almost unilaterally.
Yeah, and I mean it's his like sort of ultimate political project, and it's been going on like, you know, he's been working on it since the 90s basically, but him and the Federalist Society have been in lockstep this entire time, and like they're getting their way, like they're just winning, and they're going to have installed these people who are going to be basically legislating from the bench for decades to come.
I mean, just like what point do you think McConnell, was this a question of McConnell? Because certainly the Garland thing, right? Like,
yeah,
I think that empty seat on the Supreme Court is one of the most underestimated reasons why Donald Trump isn't the president.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah. And like, so this is what I wrote about, and I have the cover of the New Republic. Pick it up at your newsstand. So I wrote about McConnell, and and he sort of says as much. But I think you can look at how Donald Trump won. And on the one hand, he genuinely convinced a bunch of people who don't normally vote for Republicans to come out and vote for him, because he was out there saying every day, like, I'm going to fight for Social Security. We're going to get out of these wars we're in. He was out there talking like a non-Republican. And McConnell was the one telling everyone, reassuring everyone, oh, by the way, he will govern like a Republican, meaning specifically he's going to appoint the judges we want.
Well, he was holding up a list.
Yeah.
Trump was holding up a list made by the Heritage Foundation and
Yeah.
the Federalist Society
Yeah.
that was basically like, here's my one promise to you.
Yep.
And that was the indication, right?
Yeah, and that's how you get a coalition together of like people who want to reject everything, and then people who are like, yeah, all right, you know, he's gonna, like the evangelicals and everyone else are
I think
that's
it's the
it.
evangelicals.
I mean, that's how he got the evangelicals. Yeah, he mobilized.
He was able to mobilize the evangelicals despite the fact being the most profane, like, example of humanity that you could imagine.
What?
So that also, like, so McConnell too, him sort of in the background with Heritage and Federalist Society, like getting Trump on the same page on judges, it was also the signal to like all the Republican establishment, like, all right, I guess like we don't actually need to prevent this guy from getting the nomination. Like we actually can just sort of sit back and see what happens. And McConnell's classic move is to sit back and see what happens. It was like after the Access Hollywood tape, people are rushing to get statements out rejecting Trump, and McConnell's just like, let's see how this plays out. He does it all the time. He just like doesn't talk until he sees how the situation's going to play out.
I am amazed at how much the Democrats and the media failed to hold Ryan and McConnell to account for any part of this.
I know. Yeah.
Crap show.
I know.
And McConnell just seems to me to be uniquely devoid of shame.
Oh yeah,
like his statements that he came out the other day saying like Obama should have done more to stop the Russians from interfering in the election. Yeah, that's stunning. Just to remind people why that's so stunning.
So the intelligence agencies are saying like, well, Russia keeps hacking these emails and is trying to basically interfere in the election to hurt Hillary Clinton.
And they had tested like their ability to get into voter rolls. Too,
Yeah,
is
they
my
had
understanding.
been testing. They had just been sort of trying everything. It was like a kitchen sink. Like, let's just sort of mess around in all these little edges around the election. And like, so they brief Congress and they brief the leaders of Congress and Obama and it was like, let's all put out a statement condemning Russia for doing this, just so that like people know that it's going on. And McConnell's like, no, like he's like, I'm not signing on to any joint statement with you. I think his sticking point was like, you're not allowed to say that they want to help Trump win. Like, I'll be like, Russia, don't interfere, but you're not allowed to actually tell the truth about what's happening. So he refuses to sort of be the Republican signing on to the statement condemning Russian interference.
So he, at that point, is on board, or is that's all part of his like? I'm going to see how this shakes out. As long as I don't have to take any position that will like sort of commit me to being on any side of this ledger.
Yeah,
because he's worried in Kentucky, right? Theoretically, of like a primary at one point too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a couple years ago, he actually in the end he won handily, but he was so unliked by the base that there was a lot of energy around finding someone to primary him.
People forget that McConnell, like if you listen to Mark Levin or any of those people on right-wing radio at that time, McConnell was demonized by them.
Oh yeah,
big time.
Yeah, and it's always been crazy because he's by far the most effective Republican politician of the modern era. Like in terms of achieving conservative ends and in terms of consolidating Republican power, I don't think you can point to anyone else who's been as effective as him. But they hate him because they know he's not actually in his heart a true believing conservative. He began his career basically as a quasi Rockefeller Republican, which I sort of have come to believe was purely strategic and not out of any sort of actual belief in like moderation, because it was the 60s and 70s and you could still sort of believe that was the way forward but the day Reagan gets elected, he's a Reagan conservative, and they know he doesn't actually believe it. He was never like one of the sort of young fire breathing ultra right wingers, but so then they didn't trust him. But it was also this thing where I think during the Obama years, they were just so mad that Obama was in office that any Republican who was in office was like blamed for allowing that to happen.
Right.
so like McConnell is stymieing Obama at every turn, but it's still like, you let this man be president. Like, why aren't you doing something about
why aren't
that?
you arresting him for being a non-American citizen?
Yeah.
So does McConnell just have no like? I mean, because he's putting on an incredibly.
Yeah.
He's not just like he's not going for the record of how many judges get seated during a term of a president. These are hardcore right wingers. Like, folks who think Social Security was like the day that we went communist in this country. The folks who think that this is. People make jokes about a Handmaid's Tale, but like, so does he care about that, or is it just like he wants to leave a mark on this country and he doesn't really care what the mark is? He just knows that this is going to cut deep.
I think his personal ambition is primarily to have left a mark, to have been an influential and important person. But I think that with the ideology of the sort of people he's putting on the bench, like, so McConnell, he used to be pro-choice. He used to not care about any of that stuff. I think the social conservatism is partly just political strategy, but I think that he has the sort of oligarchic, like, because what he sort of started off caring about was campaign finance, and specifically about helping rich people help him get elected. And I think that actually sort of became the driving principle, was this sort of cycle, like reinforcing itself, where like the rich get to influence elections to help people who help the rich get elected in perpetuity. And I think that the real point of these conservative judges is to dismantle the regulatory state and sort of prevent a New Deal from ever happening again. And I think that's sort of all the stuff the evangelicals care about is sort of just like a bonus for them, but it's like the real project is just.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's my sort of feeling on what
that
he
makes
believes.
a lot of sense. So just like having he has one issue set in terms of the regulatory state, which makes sense coming from Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't want we should be doing we should have coal cars.
Yes.
And
and he's been back when back before they all sort of consolidated, tobacco was a big backer of him, but coal's always been it's a huge part of his campaign war chest has been coal, and so he came from.
I mean, that's the story of the Republican Party, though, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, on many respects, it's like the primary agenda is to roll back the regulatory state in any fashion, and the support that the government gives to people generally. Yeah. I mean, more specific. He likes some specific support, or narrowly tailored to wealthy people, and everything else is just sort of like are barnacles to them that are irrelevant, but also bring along a lot of support.
Yeah, and I think too, like they know. I think McConnell knows, and this is actually another reason why he might not be that popular among the base. McConnell knows and has always known that his agenda is extremely unpopular, and this is why his number one move is to sort of hide in the background and fade into the wallpaper, because he knows he is not personally likable. He is not charismatic. He has always won elections because he has outraised his opponent. At first, it was because he was outraised his opponent, and then now it's more because Kentucky politically has become a lot more conservative. And so the point of the judiciary is to prevent small d democracy, is to circumvent it, and that's been. I think that's been the project basically since they realized it was a lot harder for them to win national elections.
Why do you think the Democrats have never run against Mitch McConnell in the way that the Republicans run against Nancy Pelosi?
I mean, the Democrats always assume the electorate they're looking for is like half Republican, right? Like they always assume that the people they need to win over are ones who secretly in their heart of hearts want to vote for the Republican but need to be convinced to vote for the Democrat. So they don't, and McConnell too. I mean, Democrats don't believe in villainizing people. They really, really, really don't believe in villainizing people. So he really is allowed, I guess, to get away with so much, which is funny.
So, related question: why do you think it is that McConnell has made his career pandering to the most extreme reactionary elements of the base of the Republican Party and telling them you can have everything you want, and been very successful in that, whereas the Democrats do not seem to have that strategy on the left?
Well, we know the Democrats, this is a cliche in politics at this point, but Republicans are scared of their base and Democrats sort of hate their base. Right. Which is that's the cliche. And the incentives are just so wildly different because the media ecosystem is so different, especially now. Murdoch really Murdoch and talk radio completely changed the way Republicans relate to their own base. And Democrats don't have because so many of them still, they like getting their news from CNN and NPR, no one is pushing them to be demand more of your Democratic representatives.
Right.
I think they might be a little scared of their base too.
I mean, they're becoming a little bit more scared of their base now, but that's a very recent development.
Or at least their potential base as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think that's what AOC is.
That's what the DCCC. That's what the entire story of the DCCC thing.
Exactly. The DCCC thing is the DCCC, and I think we mentioned this when they announced this policy, and they supposedly had this policy.
It was an unofficial.
It was an unofficial policy, which is if you go after. If you are a contractor, you have a political shop, or you're fundraising, or you make pollster, you make signs, political signs, or whatever it is, and you work for a primary challenger
to any
Democratic incumbent, they will not give you.
They won't give you work. You won't get to work for any other campaigns, and all these consultants basically rely on the DCCC and other organizations to find work every election cycle.
So, and that just the idea that they're putting it out there is just meant to have a chilling effect.
Yes. Yeah.
and I guess the real question is like, part of the problem is if the Republican, if the RCC or whatever it is had done the same thing, everybody would be like, that's fine because the Koch brothers.
That's the other thing too. So the incentives matter too in terms of the money, and so McConnell, his whole deal, starting from the second he got elected to the Senate, was campaign finance reform. But he would do it in this way where it was originally. Because campaign finance reform used to be "quote unquote" bipartisan. Everyone agreed we should find a way to limit money in politics, and then it was a Howard Schultz thing. It was like, well, we all agree this is a problem, and we just disagree on the solutions. So McConnell's game for like the first decade of his career was just deciding what sort of campaign finance regulations he supported based on what he thought would be helpful to Republicans and what would harm Democrats. But as everything sort of got rolled back, and as income inequality meant that the rich were getting richer and richer, and they were using their money to more directly involve themselves in politics, he just sort of came to be like, well, I guess we shouldn't have restrictions because there's this like more money just helps our side. Because it used to be sort of arguable when unions were more powerful that more spending could be beneficial to Democrats. But like now it's like clearly money's on the side of Republicans. But he also sort of, when he did support some restrictions, it was out of this establishment Republican belief that we can't just let the rich people sort of dictate everything because we need to keep these things within the party institutions. We need to keep them giving to our party institutions so we have some control over it. Like they don't actually they don't love having to like dance for at what the Kochs and the Mercers say.
Of course not.
They don't like that.
Yeah, because they're all they all have their own egos.
They all have their own.
They all have their own, specific agendas of how to do evil things.
Yeah. So he would.
People can argue. That's where you do have that agreement. Like we all agree that this is not a problem. We just need to figure out how to avoid dealing with it in our own unique way.
We all want to take food out of children's mouths.
Exactly.
The question is, how do we get there?
Right. How do we starve the people?
Great.
We all agree we should starve the people. How do we do that?
McConnell, Howard Schultz. No one in this room.
What is this video now that Meghan McCain had a real problem standing up for Mitch McConnell?
So Adam Parkhomenko, who was of Ready for Hillary fame, found a video of Mitch McConnell stumbling and posted it. And Meghan McCain then defended Mitch McConnell. So do we want to watch the video of him stumbling?
I mean, I think we should.
Yeah, we probably should.
Just for full...
for context.
Journalistic reasons.
Adding the music might be a bit corny, but...
There you go. And Meghan McCain found that video to... Mitch McConnell had polio as a child, and his leg is partly paralyzed because of it. Again, where is our empathy and compassion? Fight him on policy if you disagree with him, but this is just gross and heartless. And, I mean, I think, public figures get made fun of. And I think like that's...
It's not beanbag.
I have a feeling like denying hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people health insurance, a little bit more gross.
Guys, there's a movement in this country
where
to
is our
compare
empathy?
People losing health insurance to making fun of Mitch McConnell falling, and that's really scary.
Parkhomenko is funny. Who
is Parkhomenko?
He's a complete psycho. He is like, but he was Clinton. He was Hillary Clinton. He had some title in the Clinton campaign.
Okay.
He was like
he started Ready for Hillary.
He started Ready for Hillary, and then his title on the campaign was like head of grassroots or something.
Oh, so he's
nuts. He's one of those. He's one of those people who believe. He's like almost like a David Brock type, where he's one of those people who believes we got to fight as dirty as they do, but their way of doing it is just so confusing. Because it's never like for anything. So he's like, for him, he's like, this is I'm fighting dirty just like they do, and it's like, here's a video of Mitch McConnell falling over.
That is great. They set up secret Oppo research and laundered false information through the New York Times. You know what I'm gonna do in response? Look at Mitch McConnell falling. He's a fucking loser.
It's like a Muppet trying to be mean or something.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we got to take a break. We come back. Dave Feldman, do you want to stick around? We're going to make fun of Bill O'Reilly, I think.
Yeah.
And good.
I like to stick around.
All right. I'm glad to hear that. We have other videos that we will play today. Quick break, and then David Feldman will be with us. It is always an honor to have our next guest on this program, someone who I watched with great admiration as a young, bushy-haired, big-eyed, what is that? I can't access things.
Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Thank you. A stand-up. I would see this guy perform in a basement in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and was always thought maybe someday I'll have the opportunity to talk to him on the phone. And that day is again arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, David Feldman. Welcome to the program, David. Host of the David Feldman Show, right?
Yeah, yes. That basement that I perform in was featured in Capturing the Friedmans. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, wow. What? That's for the real head.
Is that true?
Wow.
The
Feldman, Feldman coming
wait
in
a
hard.
second. It was in the Catch a Rising Star up there? No.
No, I used to dress as a clown. I don't want to talk about it. But my dad used to teach computer to young. Forget it. Let's talk about the important stuff. And thank you for inviting me back. I really
horrible thing
appreciate
to say.
I'm sorry.
So, David, just tell us a little bit about your show. What's going on with your voice?
Well, I'm just waking up, and so it's first thing in the morning. So, can I just say something? I'm surprised you're having me back, and I won't mention the toupee.
Okay.
That I was told not to mention, and the bridge work, your bridge work. I'm not going to mention that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Right? Yes. Okay. What? But why is that?
But the Democratic Party. I'm sorry.
Why is that a surprise?
What?
That we've had you back.
Because we don't agree on some things, and I want to say to your listeners that the Democratic Party is not heaven. Unlike heaven, the Democratic Party has room for everybody. So there's room for you, there's room for me, and we agree that Trump has to go, and that's all that matters. Let's just stick together. These ideological purity tests that you and Michael Brooks they're insane. Let's get rid of Trump, okay?
What?
You know me.
No, I know you, of course. What are the tests? What are the tests that you feel like you're failing?
I feel like when I'm around you and I'm around your listeners, they don't want me in the tent because, I supported the invasion of Iraq, as I call it. I want to nuke Iran. I think we need to reverse. I want to reverse the Civil Rights Acts of 64 and 65.
Right.
I'm pro-oil, and I think some people are born winners, some are born losers, and that should be reflected in how the invisible hand rewards us in the free market. But I hate Trump.
Right.
And I think there's room for me in the Democratic Party as long as we don't cannibalize ourselves.
Right. Well, there's a couple of those things that I feel like are cause a little friction. Don't you think? Or no?
Here we go. 1972, George McGovern. Here we go. This is why I put on a hard hat and beat up hippies. I went to the Reagan. I became a Reagan Democrat exactly because of what you're talking about. There's room for everybody in the Democratic Party. Okay?
Right. But then if that's the case, like what distinguishes it from let's say the Republican Party?
The Republican Party, it's Trump's, and I hate Trump. Trump has to go. And there's room for me. I'm socially conservative, but I'm fiscally liberal. You know that about me. I don't care how big the deficit gets. Just so long as marriage is between a man and an obedient woman. And I think we're going a little too quickly on interracial marriage. I'm just saying, let's slow it down a little.
Slow it down.
There's room for me in the party. Don't cannibalize the Democratic Party.
It's true. We have been pretty accelerationist when it comes to marriage between races. And that we've been really pedaled to the metal on that thing, I guess, to bring about, to heighten the contradictions a little bit.
It's just something. I'm a Democrat, and marriage. Let's just say, okay. Let me just get used to it. Okay? Let me just get used to it.
Used to the
And let the
institution of
states
marriage.
decide.
Okay, right. Okay. No, I got you.
Purity tests, yeah. So as you know, I'm socially conservative, fiscally liberal. I agree that we should spend away. We should rack up debt, free tuition at all public universities, basic universal income. But marriage, man, obedient woman.
This is much closer to the actual center of the country than we hear on almost any mainstream news network. So thank you for bringing that forward. Like, this is what Morning Joe would sound like if they actually represented mainstream opinion.
Is that Alex Pareene?
Yes.
I'm here. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, that was Michael, but Alex Pareene is here. Do you have a bone to pick with him?
No, I had him on my show like 5 years ago when he was reviewing snuff videos for Maxim. He's great.
The life of the freelancer.
You gotta shovel some shit to get to the gold.
Did you ever write for Maxim, though? I
No.
really hope.
No.
That was so awesome.
Their editors wouldn't take my calls.
All right, you got to get on.
I love watching your show. It's like the Paris Review. You have all these like literati, and you're too busy to hang out with me. Michael Brooks and I double dated with his new girlfriend, Barry Weiss. Have you met him?
Michael, you dating
Why?
Barry Weiss now?
Oh no, I'm not. I can't even
Michael,
say yes. I can't
about
say yes to that bit at all.
Wow,
I'm
you
very
really
triggered.
talk out of turn, David. That's really now.
That's
We went
fake
on a date
news.
in Brooklyn. Barry Weiss. I took my lady, and
Do you want to share with us?
all right.
Would we know who your date was?
Barry Weiss's older sister.
Barry Weiss's grandmother, and Barry is. Now here's something that Michael Brooks and Barry Weiss, they make a really cute couple. It's like Spencer Tracy and Hepburn. There's just a little tension between the two. And they're really cute. And I found out Barry Weiss, Barry is her middle name. Did you know this?
No.
Her first name is Dingle.
Oh my god.
Oh my God!
Did you know that? It's Dingle Barry Weiss.
What is the matter with you?
I'm
Sorry?
here for it.
Dingle Barry Weiss, and they make such a cute couple. Sam,
Yeah.
you and I both have had successful marriages. I've had a few more successful marriages than you. I've had about 5 more successful marriages.
Well, the point
than
is,
you have had, and
you need to wrap them up to make them successful. You need to basically
Yeah,
close
yeah.
the loop.
They need to,
as it
you
were.
need to succeed.
Right.
Yeah.
There needs to be
Yeah.
a.
You need to win the marriage.
Right. You need to
Declare
you need to
victory.
Finish the narrative. The narrative.
Close the deal.
Right.
And one of the things I noticed between Michael and Dingle is that they're compromising. Michael is turning into the man that I want him to be. He's going to be a great husband. At dinner, we were having an argument, a discussion about Israel vis-a-vis, America's response to Israel. And at first I noticed, and this is just wonderful to watch somebody grow up. Michael was all in on BDS. But by the end of the evening, he got Barry, or Dingleberry Weiss. She completely caved on BDS. She's all in on bondage, discipline, and submission. And
This is really disturbing.
Did you write this out before you came on, or I hope this is just coming up now?
I'm just looking at my notes here. I didn't. Now, Alex Pareene, are you still a fan of Bastonado?
I'm sorry.
Bastonado? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Cheap plate. Cheap plate.
All right. Well, David, this is. I wanted to,
When
to
he
discuss.
was Jimmy Doorbell.
Yeah.
My flamethrower's in the shop, so I can't do that.
No. Let's talk about your good friend Bill O'Reilly. Now, my understanding is that you guys started out together in show business. and then your paths diverged, and now he's. You guys have come back around in many respects. He's on Newsmax TV, which I know that you were up for this slot, and you didn't get it. Maybe it was because of anti-Semitism. Maybe not. I don't know. But
I sure hope it was.
So this is important stuff because Bill O'Reilly is talking about his experience at a Fleetwood Mac concert, interacting with millennials.
There's a lot of millennials at the Fleetwood Mac concert.
And
There's
so
a lot.
let's watch a little bit of this because real news, better talk. Newsmax TV.
Hey, I'm Bill O'Reilly, and this is the Talking Points Memo. Last night I was at the Fleetwood Mac concert in Madison Square Garden, New York City, and I learned something. I already knew
Fleetwood
Mac was a terrific group. And it's just amazing to see Stevie Nicks, 71, Christine McVie, mid-70s, Mick Fleetwood, mid-70s, John McVie, mid-70s, perform for 2 hours and 10 minutes on stage. And it's just amazing. 70s to new 40, I guess. So they were great, and the crowd was
The 70s
sold
and new
out.
40. How old is Bill
I got
O'Reilly?
to see a lot of people, and it occurred to me that there's a change happening in America. So the crowd was equally
You ready for this,
divided.
folks? Now, hold up, pause it. The change, and I don't want to tip anything off, it seems to be that there are new people being born and growing older, and then they get to a certain age, and they're older than they were when they were born.
The change that's happening in America is Lindsey Buckingham has left Fleetwood Mac again.
I don't understand.
The crowd was equally divided between boomers, baby boomers like me, who grew up with Fleetwood Mac, and then millennial Generation Z, younger people, primarily women, who admire Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie as feminine icons. So the baby boomers are watching the show, and they're fairly calm because they're old. All right? And they had a couple before they came in. They're mellow.
He's just
sitting
talking
there.
about himself. Wait, I
And,
preloaded before I got to the
the
show, he's saying.
Millennials, generally speaking, but I didn't see one without, watch the show with this in their hand. It's like
He's
they're
holding up a phone.
texting every song, and they were taking some pictures. But at the Garden, it's hard to take pictures.
I always text songs
because you're
at
away,
concerts.
and the stage is lit, but it's not a picture kind of thing. Maybe they were recording,
Does
but
he have writers?
they all had
Somebody
this
must write
in their
this for
hand.
him. How does he
Boomers
do
know.
It's doable.
Wow. Yeah, it's pretty stunning.
So I got loaded in
today.
Long Island. I got my Puerto Rican limo driver to take me. I always call the building. I say, hey, let's go see Fleetwood, Javier, but you wait in the car. And then I was there, and everybody was mellow. It was feeling good. And they came out, these fucking kids are taking pictures.
Can we play it like put up the speed so we can get to the payoff? Because I'm curious as to what the big
I'll
change in
tell you what
America.
the payoff is, you fucking Jew. Society's imploding. I'm on Newsmax, and there's 30-year-olds seeing Stevie Nicks, who I used to jerk off to in the Inside Edition days.
All right, this is 1.2 speed.
I think 1.2 speed.
No. They're millennials are taking selfies and bending over like pretzels to try to get them in the stage and all that. A couple of things.
Okay.
The band is non-political. Now, I know the band for many years, and some of them are political, but they didn't do that. And they stood away from all that, all right, which was good. People don't pay a lot of money, and it is a lot of money to go see Fleetwood Mac, to hear entertainers spout off stuff. The music of Fleetwood Mac is classic. It's timeless. And there are some songs where you want to jump up and dance, and that's fine. That's fine. But the millennial Generation Z people would never sit down. From the time it started to the time it ended, they were standing up. And there were people behind them. You know, some of these people were 75, 80. And they couldn't see. And the millennials didn't care. Not at all. Because I saw a confrontation.
Sam, I have a question.
Some of us are loaded in our mid-60s and had to leave a major cable network because we called black women mochachinos and asked if they wanted extra milk with that. And we were there, and we can't stand up because we're a little drunk. Those are some of the other people that might have been there.
This is all just about a story, a confrontation he had with a millennial, right? Like this was just people were standing in front of him. That's basically what happened, I think.
What I've noticed about America, the way it's changing, is young people are always standing in front of old people now. That's one of the main things about America.
That never happened before.
There was one guy who used to host Inside Edition that had a prominent placement at Fox News who was not standing up because maybe he'd had a little bit to drink, and there were people standing in front of him.
And there were people behind them. You know, some of these people were 75, 80, and they couldn't see. And the millennials didn't care.
They didn't care.
Not at all. Because I saw confrontations.
Oh, yeah.
I actually had one, but the guard all right, because I've been going there for many years. But this drunken guy stands right next to me in my party on the aisle. He didn't have a seat. He just kind of ran down, stood on the aisle, weaving like this. And I said, "Hey, sir, you're blocking our vision." And I gave him a look, and then I stood up, all 6'4" of me.
Oh, there we go.
And he ran away.
He ran away.
And then the usher came and said, "Do you want me to?" And I said, "No. Just make sure he doesn't come back." So the people who were standing and dancing they couldn't care less.
They couldn't care less
about if anybody could see or what they were doing. And some of these people were like gyrating, like I just hit my mic. That's what they were doing. And I'm going, you know what this is all about? This is all about narcissism. Right. And this is what's happening. Because this thing is you now. This is like your hand. It's an extension of your body. And if these millennials or Z people or whatever, they lose this,
Jay-Z
or they don't have it, that's big.
I was surprised
They
by
gotta
how
have it.
Jay-Z people were at
And the
the
boomers
concert,
too.
if you know what I mean.
I'm not saying the boomers aren't doing this, but the younger Americans under 40 really addicted. And so everything is coming through this into here. It goes bing, bing. Instead of coming from life into here, they have this in between. Now, what this does is it makes everything center around you because people are texting you, Instagramming you, Facebooking you, whatever you're doing.
Right.
You.
It's like Neil.
So therefore, the mentality becomes, it's all about me. It's about me. The whole
You know what's
life
amazing
experience,
about
me.
this? Hold on, pause it. He is now finally coming around to doing Al Franken's bit from Saturday Night Live, the Me Generation, which is stunning.
Yes.
Bill O'Reilly has finally adopted Al Franken's perspective on the world. After all these years.
His delivery of, there were confrontations. I had one.
Just coincidentally.
Yeah, how dare people dance at a concert?
I know, that's the amazing thing. He's making an argument that is completely lacking in profundity, that phones allow us to mediate our reality, and then tying it into, and that's why people dance at concerts.
No, what you're supposed to do as boomers, you go to see Fleetwood Mac. It's like going to the symphony, and you get drunk. You sit there.
Like at the opera.
First you go, you pregame, then you go to the opera.
Are we done
sit
with
down,
it? Are we done? Yeah, I think we've watched
and you
all
watch
that we can.
the goddamn performance.
I hope that millennial blocked him on purpose. I would have if I were him.
I mean, I'm surprised that people weren't protesting him.
Oh, you know, it would be so funny to be standing up right in front of Bill O'Reilly at a Fleetwood Mac concert.
I think I might just start going to Fleetwood Mac concerts with the hopes that I'm going to run into him and just stand up in front of him.
I probably would have sat down, but now that I know Bill O'Reilly is...
He also just revealed that he wasn't in a box.
You didn't have a box?
He didn't have a box, yeah, because someone was standing in the aisle next to him.
Well, you could be in an aisle in the box, can't you?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a box type myself.
Right, no,
so
it must be. But if the usher's coming, the guy had access and could run away. It couldn't have been a box.
Well, whoever did that is basically a troop.
He knew they put him in a special section. It was a no spin zone section, so you weren't allowed.
That's what he was mad about when the millennials kept spinning.
I'm telling you, he brings it. He's obviously read Professor Ben Burgess's book because the logic is spectacular if you listen to his conclusion.
Now, David, do you get up every day and watch O'Reilly on Newsmax? I mean, is that part of your daily ritual?
Yeah, and I'm actually writing a book with him about his experience at the Fleetwood Mac concerts called Killing Soft Rock.
Oh, God.
He brings it home. If you watch it to the very end, he actually makes a really salient point.
Oh, really? Let's watch it. Let's watch it to the end. We only have like a minute left, don't we?
Oh yeah, this is the thing where where you're making fun of him, but he puts a nice bow on this. And Alex Pareene, who's a writer, a great writer, he could learn about this in terms of structure.
Right.
All right, let's hear. Here we go.
Under 40, really addicted.
All right, go forward a little bit
And so
more.
everything is coming through whatever you're doing. You. So therefore, the mentality becomes, it's all about me. It's about me. The whole life experience.
This is why Dennis Miller's not on anymore, because he's taking his shtick.
And this plays out into politics, into voting, into how the country is run. I'm telling you, this socialism thing.
What?
This is what happened. It's not Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders. It's that. I want. Give me mine. Mine. I'm entitled to it. It's a narcissistic point of view. Right. The government is to provide me with education, medical care, housing, food, whatever. Give it to me. And if somebody has more than me,
he knows
I'm
what
taking
socialism
it from them.
is.
And here's another
I'm the
radical
center of the
idea.
universe.
You should be
I'm
able
a
to fuck up Bill O'Reilly's concert
During that
experience
time.
whenever you want.
And that's the Talking Points memo. I'm Bill O'Reilly for Newsmax, reminding you.
So wait a second. So if I understand this correctly, in a socialist country, everyone stands up at concerts? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. And everyone stands and dances in the aisle.
And the more you stand and dance, the more socialist it is.
Wow. That was a nice...
Socialism is when you run out of other people's views of the concert to obstruct.
Sounds, to paraphrase Churchill, it sounds good until you can't see Stevie Nicks anymore.
Everyone under 30 who does not block views at concerts has no heart.
Before I was 30, I was a socialist because I had heart.
Oh, yeah.
After I
Socialism
was
is great.
70 and drunk,
Socialism
I
is
wasn't a
great
socialist.
until you're 85 years old and try to watch Maroon 5. And all these young whippersnappers are jumping in front of you.
Socialism is fantastic until you're 90, multi-millionaire, trying to watch the Rolling Stones.
Oh,
You know,
my God.
if anything, I mean, I know he's probably only talking about himself. I think baby boomers almost dance more when they go to concerts, in my experience. I brought my mom to a 24-hour drone festival a few years back, and she was actually annoyed that more people weren't dancing.
What hour was it, though? I mean, by hour 22, I feel like people are just fried.
Yeah, it was the evening.
Okay.
It could have been dancing. My mom danced. It was adorable.
There you go.
And at the DSA Christmas party as well that I helped put together, there were some really awesome baby boomers just dancing the whole time down in front. I took a video, so fake news, Bill O'Reilly.
Basically,
That might
baby
be
boomers
English,
are the
and
narcissists.
They might be,
and you're dancing is
restless leg
disgusting.
syndrome, and
Well, David, thank you for introducing us to that Bill O'Reilly segment. I feel like I figured it out now.
They all have iPhones,
Yeah.
so all of a sudden they think they should get health care. Anyways.
Alex Pareene texted me to do this joke. I don't think it's funny, Alex. He wants me to do it. Because it's not spontaneous. It was written down. He said, "You do it. You're funny. I don't want to." He said, "This is going to be recorded for a new Fleetwood Mac album entitled 'Fuck It, We'll Do It Live.'" I don't find that funny.
Thank you, though. Thank you for doing it.
I think you delivered it much better than Alex would have, so I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
David,
like it's punny.
David,
Yeah, it's not funny, Alex.
if someone wanted to, if someone wanted to listen to your podcast, what would they do? Or your radio show, right? It's a radio show podcast, isn't it?
Have silver fillings in their molars, IUDs. We've found that women can hear my show if they have an IED installed.
Right.
Really?
And fillings in their teeth.
Wait, so what is the?
That's
what's
pretty
the-
much.
Yeah, all right. It's
I
interesting.
noticed
Sounds
that,
very
I'll be
Zuckerberg.
sure
I
to
noticed that
tune
you
in.
named it after yourself. Is that because of your phone use?
My phone use?
Yeah. Like it's all about you, isn't it, David?
What does the O'Reilly factor fit into that whole narcissism spectrum?
My factor.
I mean, no, but I'm just saying, like, not only did you name a show after yourself, it was like your, well, yeah.
Well, glass
I have a
houses,
theory.
Michael.
Anyone who has ever hosted a cable news show has just no business diagnosing another person.
I
with
know, it's
narcissism.
unbelievable.
I'm sorry, I really do
Guy
want
who, like,
I look
millions
forward
of
to
dollars paid out
to the
because
Rachel
of his
Maddow in her
sexual
Twilight
assault
years.
and sexual harassing.
Rachel Maddow's like, so we're at the Tracy Chapman concert, and this new generation, and she's going into Fast Car, which is her most famous song. I used to play it on the river, and
This is Ari Melber complaining about a Roots show 20 years from now.
used to be able to go.
That's
and everyone
so
was
true.
excited to see Questlove.
And now they all have these chips in their head. The chip in their head. It's like, it's literally embedded in their heads.
And they're
Now,
singing
we all have it
karaoke
embedded
to
in our
themselves.
heads.
So all of a sudden, I'm not just hearing Tracy, I'm hearing them.
Oh, my God.
That's so funny.
David Feldman, thank you so much for your
I
time
love
today,
you.
buddy.
I love you guys.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
So
I love
much.
you.
I love
All
you
right.
guys.
Very much.
All right.
Wow. That was, wow.
David Feldman is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Thank you, Bill O'Reilly, the gift that continues to give.
Remember the? I don't even remember the context, but this is my favorite Bill O'Reilly bit. We must have been talking about his divorce proceedings or something, and just did the welcome to the family dinner. I'm Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, my God.
I've been drinking.
All right, we're going to take a break and head into the fun half of the program, folks. You can join us there by becoming a member of the program and going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you fund the daily free show. And then, as a way of saying thank you, we give you extra content every single day. Jointhemajorityreport.com, pennies a day. Also, check out justcoffee.coop. This is the month. You get 30% off. You don't even need the coupon code majority, although you can stick it in there just to let them know where you're coming from. And this is for the month for you to try all these different types of coffees they have. Find out which one you love. Then you just keep buying it with the 10% off coupon that Majority Report offers. You're going to try the Majority Report blend. You could try the WTF blend. I've heard it's not really that
As
great.
relevant anymore.
But all the other blends are great. It's really not that relevant. Yeah, it's really.
Feeding Sam
Ever
more
since,
tendencies here.
Yeah, ever since Obama went on, that coffee's just not
it's
as
sort of
interesting.
Not had
in
the
some
same
way.
kind
Not
of
a big
pop
deal.
to it.
Yeah,
It's a little too bitter for me.
yeah, exactly. JustCoffee.coop. Michael, today is Friday. That means that Tuesday happened earlier this week.
Correct.
What happened on
On
that day?
Tuesday, I hosted.
The tenor Andrea Bocelli.
No, why would you apologize? That's so good. Oh, Jesus. We had on Kim Ives, the English language editor of Haiti Liberté, to talk about this wild story that broke in February of basically these U.S. mercenaries in Port-au-Prince essentially trying to move $100 million out of an escrow account into the president's private account. We went
Say,
into
baby, put down that pipe and get my pipe up.
That was the code name for the mission.
That was the code name for the mission.
Pipe up. Pipe up.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. And then we had on, and then Malaika Jabali joined us in studio. We made fun of Beto O'Rourke and talked about why Hillary really lost Wisconsin and why that actually matters. Yes?
What?
I thought you didn't have another drop for that?
No.
Okay.
So you're not allowed to make fun of anybody ever.
On Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, Soumya Shankar talks about the Indian elections, and Felix Biederman of Chapo Trap House is going to talk about QAnon and the Gambino. Did you guys hear this story? That apparently the head of the Gambino family was assassinated in Staten Island a couple
By a
weeks ago.
QAnon guy.
Right, and at first everybody's just like, oh shit, maybe like the mafia wars are coming back. But apparently this poor bastard, after working his whole career to get in charge of an honorable mafia family, gets clipped by somebody who was probably like tweeting at us about how like we're covering up Pizzagate. So Felix and I are going to talk about that and a whole bunch more. Patreon.com/TMBS. Michael Brooks Show on YouTube.
It makes me furious.
Jamie?
This week on the Antifada.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, my God.
Phil
We
O'Reilly's.
spoke with Rona Lorimer from Commune Magazine about the Gilets Jaunes Yellow Vest uprisings in France that are still ongoing. A lot of interesting stuff is happening there. We also did a little musical lesson in Fugazi capitalism. And also, while we're on the topic of baby boomers and the things that they like, we had a little bonus where Sham Khanna, the editor of Commune Mag, came to give a little preview of issue 2 of Commune Mag. And then we surprised him with a merciless self-crit struggle session on a recent tweet he posted that was not okay. Would you like to know what it was?
No.
Blonde on Blonde is the best Dylan record. Prove me wrong.
Whoa. When did that album come out?
Blonde on Blonde?
66?
Definitely late 60s.
Okay. Well, it sounds like it's in the time zone where it's okay to pick a Dylan album.
Oh, yeah,
Literary hangover. There's a new literary hangover up. It's coming out on Saturday for everybody, but patrons can get access to the Soul of Man Under Socialism episode. It's an Oscar Wilde essay from 1891, where he talks about his sort of like anarcho-socialism leanings and how earnest he is about those.
I'm very excited for that.
The importance of being earnest.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. Head into the fun half. 646-257-3920 is the number. We'll take your phone calls. And 646-257-3920 is that number.
1 second.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. I'm not sure why you had to step into this seat to do that. Joining us for the fun half, Alex Pareene, who you may remember from the first half of the show.
Hi, I'm back.
So let's play this clip from this guy Charles Payne. Is he on Fox or is he on Fox Business? And he's coming over to the mothership.
I know he does some stuff on Fox
to give
Business.
some insight into economics and economic behavior by people. He is on Fox and Friends explaining why the minimum wage is so problematic.
Ocasio-Cortez facing backlash in some corners for comparing airport croissants prices to the fight for a higher minimum wage. The Democratic Congresswoman
Pause
from
it. I follow the news every day, and I was not aware. Alex, have you been aware of this whole? There are some quarters where people are very upset about comparing croissant with a minimum wage.
I was not aware this had sparked outrage.
Yes, she wrote croissants at LaGuardia are going for $7 a piece. Yet some people think getting a whole hour of personal dedicated human labor for $15 is too expensive. So in other words, you've got to work like 1/16 of your day of your pay has to go to buy a croissant.
How many croissants do you think those workers can make in an hour that they're making $15?
Well, what's funny is the government can just create croissants, and you can just mint an unlimited number of them, according to what modern
croissant theory.
Modern pastry theory.
a higher minimum wage. The Democratic Congresswoman from New York tweeting on Monday, croissants at LaGuardia are going for $7 a piece. Yet some people think getting a whole hour of personal, dedicated human labor for $15 is too expensive.
Well, this morning, a New York Post op-ed firing back, arguing your wage is no kind of measure of human worth. Charles Payne is the host of Making Money with Charles Payne on the Fox Business Network, and he joins us now to weigh in on this. What doesn't she get, Charles?
Well, it was a clumsy attempt, right, to just, she's grappling all the time. The proponents of these minimum wage or higher minimum wage need to understand a few things. And there's another follow-on tweet, just so people understand when I set this up properly. When people responded to her, she always gets rankled. So she tweeted out again at the GOP, always replies to her, and she says, I guess the idea is foreign to them since their policies treat people as disposable. Well, think about a standard minimum wage. First of all, when you raise the minimum wage, the business has to raise the price of the products. Guess who gets hurt the most there? Poor house.
Now, this we know is not true. We have plenty of tests on this.
The margins on those croissants seem like they're pretty high right now.
But even to the extent that the cost of goods have to go up nominally, right? What did they figure out with McDonald's? That it would add literally 2 cents to every hamburger or
I think
something.
it was something completely minimal like that.
There are that many more people able to afford your croissant or your hamburgers.
Well, think about a standard minimum wage. First of all, when you raise the minimum wage, the business has to raise the price of the products. Guess who gets hurt the most there? Poor households. Most poorer households that I know have more than one person working on minimum wage. So I'd rather have 2 people making $13 an hour instead of 1 making $15 an hour, because that's the realistic consequences.
Sure.
Another thing.
Pause it. Wait, he got confused by his two talking points.
Yeah, he switched to the wrong argument.
Yeah, he was first trying to say poor households are hurt because they can't afford as many croissants. And then it slid into, people lose their jobs. And that is, as far as we can tell, sort of a complete fabrication.
Yeah, it's a zombie economic talking point that's big. I feel like the actual empirical data has not shown it to be borne out by the truth.
For that to be the case, then the productivity of that second person would have had to have been worth just literally $1 or something, right?
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
the idea that raising the minimum wage, that you could have 2 people working for $13 or one person for $15 would suggest that the productivity of those two people was almost complete. The second person almost had no productivity whatsoever.
Yeah, they do like to threaten that, though. Like when McDonald's will automate a restaurant, they'll blame people who want to raise the minimum wage and say, look what you made us do, as if they weren't going to do that anyway.
Of course.
An hour, because that's the realistic consequences. Sure. Another thing, from a business point of view, if I'm a business person, right, I want to be able to reward the great workers. In this sense, you reward bad workers and you punish good workers.
Unless you give them a raise and that cuts into your margin.
But that gets back to raising the prices, though, right? So the bottom line is, if you want to talk about
Don't tell people that the boss can give you a raise.
But the thing that's stopping it is it'll cut into the margin.
I just love when Kilmeade, he's
tries to be helpful
and doesn't anything. He ends up really not helping.
And incidentally, what he means by cut into the margin is that will cut into his take-home pay.
Yeah, maybe you'd want to give other people more money, but then you get less. Exactly. It's bullshit.
And you punish good workers.
Unless you give them a raise and that cuts into your margin.
But that gets back to raising the prices, though, right? So the bottom line is, if you want to talk about people being disposable, her idea of her standard minimum wage snuffs out the ambitions of the person at this company who could excel. Why would I excel if the person who's not working hard gets the same pay that I get? Yeah. So, ironically, if they were talking about erasing these sort of standards, letting people go in and excel on their own merit, that would actually have more potential.
How do you excel on your own merit?
I don't know.
As opposed to excel in other ways.
It is just sort of funny how these are just zombie talking points that are just completely disconnected from reality at this point. Like there's no who's trying to be persuaded by any of this.
I think it's just really it's like comfort food.
It is. It's just comfort food. Yeah. It's just saying comforting stories that they tell themselves.
Like this goes without saying. But just because there's a floor wage doesn't mean that everybody has to make the same.
But you cut into your margins.
The margins.
Yes. Oh,
you got to protect the margins.
You got to protect the margins. It is. I think it is basically. I think they wake up at Fox every day and they're like, "What is going to be the story that we could include AOC in and drive into our narrative?" Did you see the polling that showed that? Yeah. Republicans have a higher awareness of who she is than Democrats
do. Yep. It's everything about. Well, she ticks every box for them, and the O'Reilly thing was brilliant too, because Fox and so much of the conservative media is just about hating your own kids,
right?
And it's just like. It's just this resentment of the old for the young. It's just driving so much of this, and so she is their ideal political figure.
Totally,
she really
totally, and it's fascinating. I feel like
I could just picture her interrupting a Fleetwood Mac show. Just like
yes,
that.
She's dancing and holding her phone up,
holding her phone, and Stevie Nicks is there, and you can't stay up.
I feel like
not calling her grandparents.
If you wanted to let people know about the sort of the politics, just the politics, not so much the policy or the implication, but sort of the politics or of how media plays with the politics. Like you could put that stat in a time capsule.
Yeah.
And that would I think, some academic, 1,000 years from now I went back and it was amazing that the people who opposed her actually had a higher awareness of her. And what this said about the media landscape at the time. Now, of course, we no longer have the ability to play any of this video because we banned it because of the extreme narcissism and the dancing. But yeah.
That's like... and there's a lot of sort of when the people were talking about how her poll numbers, they were like, oh, she's underwater with everyone except women and young people.
Non-whites.
And non-whites.
Right.
And it was like the women and young people and non-whites were didn't know as much about her as the white men did, because the white men were just hearing about how evil she is every day on Fox News.
Here is a guy, Pete Hegseth, who was on the short list, apparently, of Donald Trump's to run the VA because of all his experience on Fox and Friends.
He's a veteran.
And this is an interesting perspective to take on vets. I wonder if they will push this. Like maybe they should do a special on Fox about how those vets, those greedy vets.
The VA, under a $200 billion budget.
Pause it.
And
Now, I
there are
should
good-
say this is Howard Schultz at his Fox town hall talking about the VA.
Our budget, and there are good people who are there, is probably a good example of a government organization that is quite bureaucratic and not meeting the needs of post 9/11 veterans. I will fix the VA.
Well, that was Howard Schultz last night at the Fox Town Hall in Kansas City, Missouri.
Meanwhile, most of the Democratic candidates are running on socialist ideas like Medicare for all.
But would that system really work in the United States? American veterans know the answer. Fox and Friends Weekend co-host, Army veteran Pete Hegseth. Pete, you were all over this. This is one of your passions. You were heartened to hear that?
No, I mean, it was a good problem identification, right? But then if you say, we're going to fix it, well, the devil's in the details. Now, this president has gotten it right from day one. He has said, give veterans choice, hold people accountable, make the system transparent. But the reality is this is still, there was a Wall Street Journal op-ed this week that started a lot of this discussion. You like socialism? Ask a veteran. The VA is veteran government-run socialized medicine. And we've pumped billions into this system, millions, and it hasn't made it better.
Okay, so let's take a look.
Pause it for 1 second. Throughout the history of the VA, which is actually actual socialized medicine, all the doctors are
employed,
paid,
yeah.
are government employees. And maybe not all, but the vast majority. And they have one of the most complicated tasks. The VA as a whole is almost like a completely socialist country in some way in terms of the support that it provides for vets. And really, for the past couple of years, there was a dip, but the favorability ratings, or the however you measure that, the satisfaction levels, were higher for the VA than any other system that we have. And Pete Hegseth, he doesn't like how dependent people are on it, I guess.
And it hasn't made it better.
Okay, so let's take a look. By the numbers, how big the VA is right now. Over close to 400,000 full-time employees, over 1,200 healthcare facilities, 9.8 million vets using it in 2017. It is the second largest department in federal government. And Pete, when you look at 1,200...
Pause it. Now, do you think they're going to come to the recognition like, maybe we shouldn't have so many wars?
Yeah. Boy, I'm looking at that number of vets and I'm thinking that's a lot. That's a lot of veterans.
Why would we?
Like concurrent forever
so
wars.
Strange.
Yeah, I'm guessing no.
And Pete, when you look at 1,200 healthcare facilities, one of the things that you have talked about and the president has talked about is he'd like to be able so that somebody who's disabled or needs care doesn't have to go to a facility. They just go to their local guy.
That's exactly right. Get the best care anywhere is the idea, and it doesn't have to be a VA facility. The number of VA employees has gone up by 100,000 in the last 10 years. 100,000 more employees. You've got an entire hospital network. Only 7 million of 21 million veterans in America actually use the VA. And even with all that manpower increase and all that money increase, you're still waiting longer and longer at the hospital to actually be seen.
So wait times have not improved?
Wait times have not improved. This is what you get from government. More spending, because it's a top-down perspective. Here's the hospital you use within this radius, and you get this doctor, as opposed to empowering the individual to say, I've got a knee issue. Dr. Jones down the street could help me with it, and the dollars could follow me to get that
People
addressed.
are still getting on lists to get to see their doctors.
Unfortunately.
Look at this. Veterans granted disability compensation. If you compare after World War II, 1.5 million veterans, 2017, 4.5 million veterans.
This is a really complicated discussion. This is about disability ratings, which isn't always necessarily tied to health care, but the idea that the health care you get is about service-connected disabilities. So if you go to war and you get injured, we'll take care of you. So when you come home, they try to rate how disabled you are, and that's how much care you get. Well, I could be rated for 50% right now if I wanted to be. I mean, just to have a totally, and vets know this out there, I could do ear and ankle and knee and back.
Because it's proportional,
because
right?
it's proportional for different injuries that you have. Groups out there, vets groups mostly, encourage vets to apply for every government benefit they can ever get after they leave the service. Because, well, why not, right? The government's giving it out. To me, the ethos of service is I serve my country because I love my country, and I'm going to come home and start the next chapter of my life. And if I've got a chronic condition, mental, physical, otherwise, the government better be there for me. But otherwise, I don't want to be dependent if I don't have to be.
You got.
Oh yeah, all those vets who now. One of the reasons why that number could be higher is that we don't have as many people dead after conflicts. We have more people injured. And there's a couple of things to unpack in there. But the VA handles unique injuries that are a function of war that you don't get in any, in civilian life. A, and B, just this idea that somehow vets now are just getting are too grubby.
They're coming home from the war and getting on the gravy train. They just can't wait to get those handouts when they're back from war.
I mean, they could always bring back trench warfare. That might cut down on the numbers some.
I don't understand why more vets don't follow Pete Hegseth's path and leverage other vets to score points on Fox News. That's really, I think,
they're not risking the imagination of a new possibility.
They're like welfare mercenaries.
They are. That's exactly what they are.
They're only joining because they want health care. Get them out of there. Disloyal.
Let's go to the phones. You're calling from a 786 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. This is Federico calling from Gainesville, Florida.
Who is it?
It's Federico.
Federico, try to back off your phone a little bit. I don't know what you're talking on, but it is not clear.
How about now? Is this better?
Much better.
All right. I'm just calling. I'm one of the famous DACA illegals, and to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous. But I've been going to college here in Florida for about 10 years now. I'm about to finish here with a veterinary degree and a PhD. And frankly, I'm planning on leaving. And I've been having a lot of conversations with my friends that are really, really surprised to hear, like, oh, man, you've been here for so long. Why are you leaving now? Why don't you wait till the next election? Everything's going to be better. And these are the same people that I had been talking to before that, like, man, don't vote for Trump. It's going to ruin my life. It's going to ruin people's lives. This is serious. And they think it doesn't have consequences, and these things do. I'm going to be okay. Probably going to go get a good job somewhere else.
Where are you going to go?
A lot of people are going to have really shitty lives from this.
Where are you going to go?
Probably the Netherlands. That's where my girlfriend's from. So, probably going to be okay. I'm originally from Uruguay, one of the better Mexicos. But, yeah. Going.
Uruguay is known to be a
so wait a second.
Mexico country.
So if I understand you correctly, you have friends who voted for Trump who did not understand the implications. Do they understand the implications now? I mean, it sounds like they don't.
Yeah, they still don't. I've been friends with them for about 3-4 years because we're in vet school together, and yeah, they really don't. I had one of them approach me, with an idea to open a clinic out in Texas, and he was kind of offended by me saying, like, man, I can't stay here. This sucks. Like, you can't live life like this.
Because and just to be clear,
couldn't understand why I wouldn't just wait.
Just to be clear, it's because you're constantly waiting for this sort of Damocles to drop because you just don't know what the findings of a court case is going to be. As to whether you have to uproot your life within a couple of days or months.
Right, exactly. We have to renew every 2 years, and every time you send in your paperwork to renew, you're just there waiting to see what somebody over there in the federal government decides to do with your application. And Yeah, I was actually doing a degree that was supposed to be a PhD and a DVM degree together. And as soon as Trump won the election, I had to change my plans and put the PhD on hold because, in case I get kicked out, I need to get degrees quickly. Right. So I had to stop the PhD. That was immediately after the election, And there are big consequences to these things.
What were the circumstances in which you ended up in the States?
I came here with my family. My dad was in prison for 2 years in Uruguay, waiting for trial. Big family problems with my grandfather. That was a rich guy. He was paying off a judge to keep my dad in jail. Finally, when the case got to the Supreme Court of Uruguay, he got let out because there was no case. There was never a trial or anything. So we came here. We applied for asylum since he had death threats, and maybe 10 years after the asylum case got processed, I was already in my junior year of university here. We got a letter saying that you need to leave because your asylum case is not approved. Since then, my parents, one of my sisters was married to somebody, and she became a citizen. My parents are citizens. They're here. They're staying. I've been actually lucky because they have kind of figured out their lives. They're making, $100,000 a year over. So they support me a lot. I don't know how other people do it. That's probably the main reason I've been able to get so far because they kind of made it. But it's not easy, man. It's not easy.
Wow. Well, I don't know what to say. My heart goes out to you. I'm sorry you're going through this, and I'm sorry, I'm sorry for all of it. All I can tell you is I wish you the best. So you're about to finish this degree, is that right?
Yeah, I'll be done with the veterinary degree in a year, and I'll probably finish a PhD within another year, and that's also kind of 2021 when things hopefully will change. But yeah, the plan is to leave around there.
Wow. All right. Well, check back in with us. Hopefully things will turn better quicker, but I don't know how that would happen. But
I just wanted to say also before I go, I'm a student. I live off of loans. I make no money, but I was able to cancel my Spotify account a couple months ago so I can start giving you guys money because you guys do a great job. And if I can do it, a lot of people can, and they should because you guys do a great job.
Well, I appreciate that, but I want to remind people, and you too, people should not put themselves in any type of financial stress over it. Happy to let people in.
I understand, but
all right.
There's always expenses that are superfluous, so we can, make it work.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That really, I appreciate that a lot. All right, man. Good luck.
All right. Thanks a lot, Sam.
Bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
It's very easy for a large swath of the country to just feel that the implications of Donald Trump's election is just about having somebody who's gross in the White House.
Also, should we just maybe think of how terrible the situation is for that guy, and he's in a very nice position, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Let's go to 813 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Tomash. I'm from Florida.
What kind of phone are you using?
I'm using more of a free Hangout app. Sorry.
Yeah.
So my question is, so I'm half Portuguese, half American, and my dad works for USAID, and I'm also currently an econ and international studies major here in Florida. And I was thinking about what your thoughts are about international aid, because I have concerns because I grew up around it, and it's on the one hand, I feel for people, and I think that the United States is trying to help to a certain extent, but on the other hand, you're also destroying local industries. What comes to mind is the clothing industry in Kenya and East Africa have been completely decimated by donations.
By donations of clothing.
Yeah, like for example, like they used to have like a local textile, like I know in Kenya because I lived there for 5 years, they had like a textile industry there back in like the 80s, I want to say, and like it got completely decimated once they started accepting like free clothing.
Interesting.
And I was just wondering what your general thoughts are about like development aid.
I mean, in general, I think obviously, I mean, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that dynamic, to be honest with you. And I think it's I think it's a function of the type of aid given in specific locales. But broadly speaking, I mean, generally for it. I think the question is, how do you go about doing it? How does it not get sort of captured in some way by various industries or constituents' agenda that is imposed on other countries? I mean, I think, broadly autonomy by, giving the recipients of this aid more autonomy on how in what forms it comes is obviously the best thing to do.
I don't know. I think though it's a hard thing because how you functionally decouple those things is very hard in practice, and also I think maybe the frame of aid is a problem because I mean, I don't know anything about Kenya. If you email, I would like to read more about it, but I know, like, I've been covering Haiti a lot recently, and there's a very serious dynamic like that in Haiti, to the point of people not even being able to like set up a local, you go and get a medical degree and you're Haitian, you can't practice medicine in Haiti. Like, the whole space is totally dominated by aid.
NGOs.
Yeah. And an aid industrial complex, which also correlates with World Bank and IMF, like basically, or even you go to Africa, like I forget the stat, but there's some, like, everybody talks about the amount of aid that goes to Africa, but it's either equal to or dwarfed by the amount of taxes that leave the country and resources that migrate to the global north. So in some ways, it's kind of like corporate social responsibility. It's like, if a penny on each of your cup of Starbucks goes to some like nice little eco initiative, I guess that's nice then, if it doesn't, but it's not just coffee, right? Where it's like, oh, this business is actually built in a way that really works for everybody, right? And so I think maybe there's an analogy there, and we need to rethink. And things just like debt relief are more important than aid.
Yeah.
Stop imprisoning these countries on colonial debt structures, which is literally what they are. They're historically unchanged.
Yep. There are always strings attached when you're talking about NGOs and charities. There are always politics behind it. And I know I've talked about this before, but like really the concept of mutual aid versus charity, one of the differences is you actually talk to people, you ask them what they need, you ask them what they want before you go in with this one size fits all solution that you want to impose on them. So it might be harder if, people don't have a really great democratically elected representative, but you always got to take it to the people first. That's what I would say.
Let's go to the IM's Pajama Boy. Hey, Sam, love the show. Of course, but I think you really need to consider how much Michael, Jamie, Matt, and Brendan are cutting into your margin. Exactly.
Actually, very little.
We have strict cost controls. I mean, that's why we can't. Hey, Winnipeg Greg, can... West Coast comrade. Hey, Winnipeg Greg, can we can cover more Canadian politics next time you have another crack-smoking mayor. Otherwise, don't get your hopes up. Colin from Nebraska. What should be the balance, scorn and respect, be towards voters who are not supporting Bernie? I don't think you should be.
Voters shouldn't be the object of things like scorn, I don't think.
Right. Voters, and that being said, I think not supporting Bernie is a character defect.
JB, can any of you explain what the DCCC is exactly? It's not a PAC. When it's to their advantage to be considered part of the party, they're considered to be part of the party. When it's to their advantage to be considered independent of the party, they're considered to be outside the party. How can this be addressed? Well, the DCCC is an organization whose members are members of Congress.
Right.
And it's not the DNC. It is specifically
the campaign committee for the House,
right.
House Democrats.
Exactly. It's the House caucus.
Yeah.
Setting up their own party infrastructure or I guess really in some ways, sub-party infrastructure. But they obviously pour money into campaigns. So all the Congress people have to go and raise money and kick a certain portion of that back to the DCCC.
How does that compare to the PCCC?
That PCCC is a outside
Completely different thing,
organization.
okay.
Yes, that basically, I think they did that with their name to provide a sense that they're trying to push that caucus to the left. So,
A lot of American politics, when you're talking intra-party politics, gets so much agitation derives from the fact that we don't have coherent political parties like they do in parliamentary systems. Like, there is no Labor Party here. The Democratic Party is sort of a fiction.
Right.
Like, people don't belong to the party. And there are these organizations that represent the party in an abstract way, but you're not, everyone in the UK, you can be an actual member of the Labor Party who votes for the leader of the Labor Party, and you can't do that here.
right. I mean, that's the thing that I feel like, I don't want to harp on this too much, but, one of my pet peeves is the whole notion that the election, the primary was rigged.
Oh, here we go.
And,
I didn't know which one we were going to.
Somebody sent in an email, and I didn't read it terribly carefully, but it was trying to prove that the primary was rigged because Elizabeth Warren had said in 2017 that the DNC was rigged by Clinton.
Yeah.
Which was, in many respects, that was true.
Yeah.
She had taken, she had a deal with the DNC in terms of personnel and in terms of funding and whatnot that was anticipating her being the nominee, which is different from saying that the election is rigged.
Right.
And
if Bernie had it lined up the same way, nobody would be complaining about that.
Well, and it wouldn't have made a difference in the election.
Well, other people would have been complaining.
That's the thing, is that it wouldn't have made a difference in the outcome of the primary. Somebody wanted me to point out too, I guess it was at the end of the day, was it Wednesday? We had an IM saying that Nevada went, Bernie won and only got one delegate from Nevada, and they were counting the super delegates that are added at the convention. And so this stuff is not helpful and also wildly inaccurate.
Okay, but you did admit that there is a structural advantage given to establishment candidates, and I think it's fair to be critical of that.
Yes. I mean, it's also the case with our entire society. There is a structural advantage for people who are closer to money, have a closer proximity to money.
Worry about the big rig. Worry about the big rig.
This is exactly what I meant about the fact that the party is sort of a abstract thing and not an actual thing, causing these fights that are. And the way we nominate presidents is insane. Though it's a crazy way to nominate. Maybe we could all go back to the drawing board and dream up a new way of doing it that would be fairer and more democratic. But for now, it's just this hodgepodge of accumulated traditions. But people are not the Democratic Party. You can't really you can't say it has done a thing. You just have to talk about specific actors.
Yes, and that actually ties in too to this whole thing with the Mueller investigation.
Yeah.
To say the Democrats have done something, it doesn't make sense.
Just be specific. You have to be specific.
Right, yes. Adam Schiff has made a career off of this.
Yeah.
A couple of those other dudes have made a career off this. But to the extent that you can talk about Democrats, you could talk about people who ran in the 2018 election, and they almost all of them ran on healthcare.
Yep.
That's just a fact.
And I'll say something that might be unpopular with certain people, and I'm not even sure. I like Daniel Bessner has a little bit of a critique of Bernie's sort of global authoritarian frame. He actually raises some good concerns about it. But even somebody like Sanders, who tipped his hat to it a couple years ago, immediately pivoted towards this bigger argument about how does this fit into a pattern of oligarchy and authoritarian governments. there was a lot of different ways that it manifested. And I say that as somebody who is like 100% on board with like trashing, MSNBC and so on, right? As I know we are. I'm not interested in relitigating that argument, but it's just like, you're right. I mean, it is just literally not true that there was a block of Democrats that did anything. It's basically never the case, actually.
Well, because that's what the point is that Alex is making is that that's an impossibility.
Yes.
Because there are only entities that play different roles within the context of the party. And so there is
and even just the genuinely broad ideological range of it. Like the Republicans
I think there are personality traits that you could attribute to people who are Democrats that is more accurate of a descriptor than the Democrats actually doing a thing. Broadly, you get a broad set of potentialities of policies that could be executed when you elect a Democrat. And they range pretty far depending on what topic you're talking about.
Well, I guess, right. Because it's like if we broke both parties up into Euro-style parties, the Republicans might have they'd have one full-time, fascist something or other party. They'd have some type of religious thing. Maybe one other just sort of pure pro-business deregulation thing. But the Democrats might legitimately be 6 parties.
Yeah.
And then if you did have it's foolish to say they're the same thing in this context, but as an example, I think if there was a Republican faction that just turned into some 4 or 5% vote, like the liberal Democrats in Germany, right? They really are. They want to deregulate the German economy. That's it. You would get Democrats that would join that party, and then you get Democrats that would join a bougie Green party.
Cass Sunstein would be the chair.
Yeah, exactly. And then so even in that comparison, there's way more complexity amongst Democrats. Yeah.
Forgive that sound, folks.
That's really intense. They're doing all this work in the hallway here,
Yeah,
and
they repainted
it all looks worse.
Yeah, I actually
exactly.
I got out of the elevator and I
How many
thought.
times have I said that, Brendan? I walked down the hall in the morning. I'm like, did they purposely design this to look like it was older and
it used to have a kind of it was blue, right?
Yeah,
it had like a nice
It was
blue.
kind of dark.
It was a little dark, but it was very pleasant.
It looks pleasant.
It was very pleasant.
Now it just looks like institutional.
A lot more
It
institutional.
looks institutional and I don't know, like a Motel 6 institution.
It's unbelievable. Secret Identity Politics. The best Dylan album is John Wesley Harding. Blonde on Blonde has way too many words. I want to hear more. I want to hear more about these greedy disabled vets. Local pizza historian. Schultz is just doing that tech thing where they rediscover something everyone else already knew as if it's new or novel, like when Apple offered human-curated news editors, or that zero-emissions below-ground refrigerator, a cellar. Schultz has just discovered... Schultz has just discovered using a group of people chosen by other people to represent them in government. A republic. Dolink. DJT history with Puerto Rico involves millions spent on future hotel. He's mad because he lost it all. No hotel. Mad at the Puerto Rican government. Right. Kentucky Fried Comrade. Hey, MR Crew, I'm worried about this beef with David Pakman. His show has a thriving community behind it. Callers and IMers like Dissident Pakman, the Crystal Pakman, Mike from Pakman. PA come in.
All right, guys.
All right.
All right,
Bluster.
fella. Keep it moving, fella.
Ronald Pac-Man.
Why are corporations held accountable to the truth by the SEC, but politicians are allowed to lie?
Has the SEC been holding?
Yeah, I was going to say, what are we talking about?
Do you know
are we
something
talking
we
about?
don't know?
I hope is that an aggrieved Elon Musk supporter there?
Even he's getting away with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is the pros? Elon Musk is going to be fine. Elon Musk will be back on.
His lawyer had a really good line that I saw the other day, where the judge was like, "In your opinion, could he say anything that would violate the agreement?" And the lawyer was like, "No."
Right. No, of course not.
No, nothing he says could possibly violate that.
Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 509 area code. A lot of people got in. We've been on hold for 41 minutes. 509. All right. Let's try 330. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hoping for an O'Reilly drop.
Hey, Sam, it's Ryan from Ohio.
Ryan from Ohio. What's on your mind?
Okay, well, I haven't called in a while, and I think it's time for me to finally tell you guys my full name, which is Tim Ryan from Ohio.
Tim Ryan, okay.
And I recently announced my candidacy. Did you know that I'm the only candidate to be endorsed by somebody who ran for Democratic Leader of the House? That's right. I endorsed myself last night.
Congratulations. That's,
and
go ahead.
I know I didn't win that race, but I've looked inward, and I've realized that much like Mitch McConnell's polio, I didn't try hard enough.
Nice. Yes, this is exactly the kind of joke that I approve of. Thank you. Could you imagine how much
I have a
better off
list
we'd
of
be?
people for my cabinet when I become president.
Okay.
Secretary of State is going to be Jerry Springer, of
All
course.
Right, from Ohio.
Secretary of Defense, Neil Armstrong. Press Secretary, Omarosa.
She from Ohio?
Secretary of Education, LeBron James.
Well, actually, that's
Marilyn
not bad.
Manson is Marilyn Manson is going to be my head of the EPA.
Oh, hell yeah.
Wow.
And the moment you've all been waiting for, my vice president, the man himself, Mr. Cliff Schechter.
All Ohio
Cliff would actually be a pretty. I could see him as a Democratic VP, just being like, and we're gonna get out there, we're gonna out because the Republican base are a bunch of fat guys.
Yeah,
they're fat, they're stupid. And, you know, I hate to say this, but you know, they're a bunch of fat losers.
He plays a Spiro Agnew role.
yeah. Cliff Schechter is the Spiro Agnew of the NPR set.
Appreciate the
That's
call,
an incredible
Tim. Good
bit.
luck. Good luck.
Oh, thank you.
I wonder if we got the first interview with him since he declared.
Do you remember Cliff Schechter's Star Wars?
He announced on The View.
Oh, he did. He
Tim
announced
Ryan
on The View.
Announced on The View. Yes.
Oh, all right.
I was wondering where Kucinich was going to be. Wow.
All right, we got time for one more phone call. I think calling from an 831 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hell yeah, I got on this time. This is Eli from Los Angeles.
Hello, Eli from Los Angeles. What is on your mind?
Hey, dude.
So, I have a quick question. This is just something that I think of kind of when I'm watching, you know, the sort of socialist infosphere. People talk a lot about raising taxes as kind of like a practical medium, you know, instead of just like we're going to overhaul capitalism and get rid of it, just like let's raise taxes and pay for all of this welfare state. It feels like the first thing that a lot of countries run into when this sort of thing happens is capital flight, and that if you have just about anywhere on earth that can act as a tax haven, it seems like kind of impractical to go about doing this sort of thing. And I was just wondering if you've thought of any sort of solutions for that.
I know that it's been a problem in some countries in the past. France, I think, had a decent amount. I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal in the U.S.
I think
frankly.
the U.S. has advantages that, like, when the Scandinavian countries had capital flight and capital strikes even, and the U.S. has advantages in that everyone sort of needs to do business here.
Yeah, I think I think we're fairly, I'm not saying that it's not going to happen at all. We're fairly well situated, but I imagine there's also sort of penalties that you could put that would make it much harder because of how many transactions are done in dollars and how many transactions go through our financial system, that you could capture those in a way that, a Scandinavian country, even France, and maybe the EU has changed that dynamic on some level, couldn't do. So I'm not as concerned of it being an issue, frankly.
I was thinking that instead of the like, how are you going to pay for this? Or in a way, it is sort of a how you're going to pay for it. But I was thinking that every time, I don't know if this would work in the campaign, but you could basically, if I was out there campaigning and releasing proposals for things like Medicare for All and adjusting corporate tax rates, I would also like to see announcements of corollary proposals of how exactly you're going to punish tax avoidance and do the types of things that Sam's talking about. You could start outlining a whole infrastructure of how you can basically punish that. But I think in the United States, I mean, there's big advantage.
I also think, I also think that like it's a bit of a red herring. Like, you know, like these problems, there's a level of sophistication now. If we really want to stop capital flight or to make it make there be serious pain involved with you taking your money out of this country, we can do it. And
I see.
I mean, there's no doubt that we can make it much more prohibitive. But you know, like that's like a second order policy issue.
Well, no, it's not a reason not to do it. Obviously, we need to have a stronger welfare state. But like the penalties need to be so harsh that it's not just seen by companies as the cost of doing business, which is more or less what it is now. I mean, I'm thinking about all the outsourcing that's already occurred with pretty much zero penalty. But it also speaks to the need for a real progressive international, which is something that Bernie has spoken about at length already. He wrote that op-ed in The Guardian. He met with Yanis Varoufakis about it because, yes, the more countries sign on to minimum standards of labor, minimum standards of social provisioning, the less you're going to see that happen.
And that's happening in Mexico right now under AMLO, obviously with way less power, and you need leadership that can actually support somebody like that in fighting that.
And I guess that's actually something that you kind of have in a way pointed out, is that the United States is in a unique position in order to be able to put these sort of capital restraints on, and people still need access to our market. Other countries don't really have that strong of a position, and they don't have as strong of like currency and stuff like that either. And so it's kind of like we're the big stuff on the street, and so we're able to say like, yeah, you need access to our market, but other places like Mexico, like even though it's still a large market, like they don't have as much leverage.
Right.
And so it's kind of,
and at some level, it makes it
sort
much
of like
more.
a meta thing. I wasn't thinking about specifically about the United States, but just in general, like if places raise taxes, like how can there sort of be like a global way to figure out how to tighten the capital flight restrictions?
Having the United States do it would help in that effort.
Well, and that's also actually loops back to the debt forgiveness conversation, and stop, like as an example, having these colonial arrangements with the Caribbean, because like people are always like, oh yeah, the Caribbean, like that's where people launder money. It must just be because like these governments are like, you know, corrupt or something. Not exactly. There's a whole history and structure behind how these places are used for banking
with like
on
Haiti
behalf of
paying
our
for the
interests
price
here.
of the slaves and stuff
You know,
like
it's
that.
like Bernie Sanders said. He's like, right in this room is an empty chair that represents Mexico.
Appreciate the phone
Trying
call.
to raise their taxes. They're
All right.
in the room.
We are done with phone calls. Let me take a couple IMs. Wu-Tang Clan, Jeebus Sam. Marin is the new Todd Phillips Joker movie. Is in the new Todd Phillips Joker movie.
Oh, that's awesome.
What the hell is this world coming to?
Good
I
for
thought
him,
we were
man.
canceling creepy old guys who only date women half their age. Oh, just stop it.
Why would you read that?
I don't know what it says until I read it.
That's your friend. Jesus.
Right about now, I was okay. I thought we were canceling. I didn't know what it said. I know I'm sick, and I'm not on a lot of drugs, but it's freaking me out that there's a double Michael Brooks today. Did someone switch my Sudafed with acid? It's true, actually.
I'm
Jay
seeing
Tingle.
double 4 Michael Brookses.
Blonde on Blonde came out in 1966, and then he had his apocryphal motorcycle accident that removed him from public life for 2 years. And that is only a small reason why 66 was perhaps the most pivotal year of the rock era.
Are we going to say that Dylan is
Interesting.
overrated as the Doors or less?
Less.
Oh,
my
come on.
I'm just kidding. Come. Oh my God, Jesus Christ! I was expecting it. There aren't even any boomers in the room, and we got the most like, oh my God, how could you? He's America's poet laureate. Shut up.
Wow. My libertarian friend, who I tried to get to call into the show last year but decided not to after hearing about Sam's tweet that got him fired, is now supporting Beto for president. Looks like there are quite a few libertarians supporting Beto for president. That makes sense. Do you remember there was Josh Marshall had posted an email he got from the guy who works with Jonathan Weiler. They're working on some work. I can't remember what his name was. Some political scientist who said that Beto and Bernie share share some voters because the subtext of both of them is similar in terms that they're outside of the mainstream and they're a little bit more niche. And certainly that would explain like a libertarian interest in Beto. I mean, I don't see any policies that sound to me libertarian per se. It's just he's got like
we have liberty in this country.
Is he good on weed?
Awesome.
Yeah, that was the only reason he got elected was weed.
Oh, weed. Is that what it?
Yeah, that was his main.
Oh, right. He's the ganja.
But that was his main sort of policy plank. And now
if we can't smoke this reefer, what are we doing here?
But you have to do
If
this.
we can't light this up, I don't know why we're here.
There is something really odd about him.
For a very long time, there has been the etiquette of puff, puff, pass, and I believe in that.
It's like it's a metronome for him.
Yeah.
It really is interesting. I mean, and weird, I think. I think it's
I
a little bit weird.
like what Malika said on Tuesday. She's just like, so much energy, Jesus. It's like,
Yeah,
God,
anyone with that much energy is probably not working that hard.
It's just like he's totally like the first hour of a party where a lot of coke is going around, and it's all like, I'm going to start this business, and then we're going to get into real estate, but there's a lot of collaboration.
Yeah, that's more specific than Beto would ever get.
That's probably true.
He would just want to start a band with you.
Right.
I wonder if that isn't also
Get on the drums.
There isn't something to that too, to sort of like constantly remind people of his age relative to other candidates I think that's possible. All right, let's take a couple more IMs. Childhood polio. No, I'm not going to.
Wait, John McCain's tumor gets one, and
okay.
McCain literally
Childhood
died.
polio.
But
Few people know that it was actually me who caught a case of Mitch McConnell.
all
That
right.
could have been worse.
Yeah. Jeffrey,
clever.
Cuomo New York State budget, which was recently passed, included a provision to gut the legislative oversight for public authorities projects such as Amazon. This oversight was part of the reason Amazon project was scrapped. Now the governor has free reign to push through a similar project in the future. He is such a scumbag.
Yeah, he's a snake.
Man, Andrew Cuomo is Jesus. He's really good at being
Ryan from Ohio. When I heard the new Joker movie was about a failed comedian, I'd hoped that you were attached, Sam. Super disappointed to find out.
Wait, is that really what it's about?
Wait a second. What role does Maron play in this movie? Is he the lead?
He was the failed
He's the Joker.
He was the
Is he the
failed
lead?
comedian's mentor.
Is he the lead?
No, it's
It's who is it?
It's like, who are your guys,
it's
Batman?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Who are your guys?
This new Joker movie is like if you put the Joker in the King of Comedy, like that's what what
I see.
But it's Joaquin Phoenix, right?
Sean.
Yeah, it's Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hell yeah.
Is 1 year smoke-free worth a shofar? Yes, indeed.
Is 1 year
I've been there. Good for you.
smoke-free? Oh, yeah.
Christo, poor Billo can't express his rugged individualism if the selfish millennial Generation Z collective is dancing in front of him. All right, well...
Stevie Nicks is here. I can't see, though.
I want to just...
71, Christine McVie, mid-70s.
All right, we got to get going.
Still a 10.
Alex Pareene, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us. Always a pleasure to have you in studio. If people want to follow you, just on Twitter or
just
what's
look for me on Twitter at Pareene and pick up the New Republic.
Yeah, get that. He's on the cover.
It's a really good piece.
All right. We will do 3 more IMs. Welcome to Kentucky. It's springtime in America. Baseball is back. All right, I'm not going to do that one. Wooden computers. Happy Friday, all. Can I get a shofar for officially becoming the first-time homeowner today and being forever an MR schmuck? I can see where this is going. Street legal. Love how that guy just blows past the fact that he knows dual-income households that are still poor. What the F?
Right.
And the final IM of the week. Higher wages can increase productivity. The wage profit share is not set in stone. The problem with capitalism is that it commodifies labor and treats human beings as just another input in the production process. See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar. kicking, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive.